Well, we are back, huh? We're back at the 9 Club, everybody. Today, we have a very special guest. Mr. Mark Oblow is with us. How are you?
I'm good. I'm stoked to be here with all you guys.
Yeah, dude.
Woo! It's been a while and
It has.
hyped.
Dude,
really hyped.
we are hyped to have you here.
Skateboarding!
Thank you.
Hey!
Woo!
The best.
Beautiful,
Oh,
beautiful,
love it.
man.
The best.
What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Yeah?
good. You know, hanging in there.
Okay.
Have a birthday coming up. You know,
When's your birthday? So everybody on Instagram.
April 5th.
Oh.
April 5th. Turning
coming up.
51.
That's
Nice.
Okay.
51. Yeah.
But you got the body of a 50-year-old.
Yeah.
man.
You know.
What?
That's pretty good.
4th of July, right? I mean, no, April. Oh, so you had April Fools.
Yep. April Fool's is the first.
And then you got your birthday.
Yeah,
You ever
yeah.
try to mess with people? You know, make up little lies and stuff?
You know, no, I
Try to pull one over on them?
I don't. But I saw Christian did one when he did a face tattoo, and I don't know if you saw
Did he
it, but
do that?
he
Oh, no.
did a face tattoo, and he had I think he did a big cross on his face, and I was just like, no way, Holmes, you did it! Like, whoa! And then it was an April Fool's, so
Wow.
it
That's
was
pretty
it
good.
was
That's-
like
it's crazy when
it was-
they can make
he
you
pulled
think
it.
it's real, and you
Yes.
know it's April Fool's. You're like, yo, was this
I
real
know.
shit?
Yes.
I know.
Well, he went crazy on the tattoos and just went from none to now he's got more than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so again, I was like, Holmes got a face tattoo. Holmes, and I was tripping out. And then, you know,
I could've-
he got me. He got me.
me.
Yeah, he got me.
Even on April Fools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you wake up and you're not. You
don't think about it
You don't think
some-
about
yeah,
it
yeah.
sometimes. It takes a minute
Yeah.
to kick in.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Then you see some ones that are just obvious.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
okay, buddy,
yeah.
you got me. But how's life? Life is good.
Life is
Treating you
good. Life is good. You
Yeah.
know, still able to roll when
I
I
love
can, and you know,
go.
lucky to be alive and you know, have sponsors still,
There
and
you go.
know, just able to live. And yeah, I'm really blessed. Have a beautiful girlfriend that's
Okay.
a skateboard photographer, and
Oh,
you know,
rad.
so it's like, yeah, it's crazy,
Wow.
crazy timing. Yeah.
Living the dream.
When I first met her, she was doing a book with Adidas. I met her like 5 years ago, and we became friends. But I met her in Germany, in Berlin. I was walking up the stairs to go to my hotel, and there was like a pack of girls sitting out front. And I was just like, whoa. And I saw her, and I was like, oh. And I ran to my room and got some stickers and stuff. Like, hey, you
got
know.
some stickers.
Yeah, stickers and pins, you know. It's like skaters, you know.
Never thought of that opening line right there.
Well,
You want some
that's the thing.
stickers?
I
Welcome
never,
to
in all my
Icebreaker.
years,
Yeah.
was never attracted to skate girls, you know. And then all of a sudden, it's been changing. And so anyway, yeah, met her and we hit it off. But funny thing is, you know, in the whole thing, she skates and she rips and she's got really good style. And I'm like, you know, I'm really stoked that you have good style, Laura. I was like, I'm really stoked. And she goes, if I didn't have good style, I wouldn't skate. And I'm like, okay, you're perfect. You're perfect for me, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, she's on top. She's on top.
Amazing,
And
amazing.
again,
Amazing.
skateboarders, the talent, and so again with
my
her
God.
photography, she inspires the shit out of me.
And that's what I was-
It's so rad. Like where
yeah,
again, I never had an artist girlfriend. I had once,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was a muse of mine, and then but to have a girl, and again, we were friends first, and I remember watching her and seeing her work, and I'm like, you're gonna be the fucking best. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna be one of Europe's hottest photographers. You've got it. And then of course she skated, and just watching her and her friends skate, and it was like the enjoyment of skating, where it wasn't the judging. It didn't matter if they're skating inside of a fucking planter. You know, they were having fun, and I'm like, you rip.
Yeah.
And the friendship just kept going, and you know, just was lucky enough to be in Europe. You know, kind of right pandemic. It was like October.
Okay.
Went there, and then we were both there for a Ruka art show thing, and yeah, just the timing worked, and
Awesome.
you know, at first feeling like weird, like what the, this is so weird. Cause again, never in my life, it's like, you know, had that happen. And it was just like, holy shit, this is really awesome. And it,
Right.
you know, and again, that's, I think what helps with the distance is just knowing that, and then having the same kind of goals and the same things where she's coming out for my birthday.
Amazing.
And then I got to take her to Hawaii for the first time. She's never been to Hawaii. And it's like, oh, I'm going to take you to Alla Park and we're going to go skate. And it's like, it's just such a cool thing to be like,
Yeah.
instead like, oh, I gotta go to dinner, I gotta take
Yeah.
this girl
Yeah.
shopping,
Right,
and like
right.
Yeah.
and but yeah, it really, you know, again with being a skateboarder and being an artist and stuff, it's just that it makes it so rad, and being able to just go down the street and have that same mindset. And,
You guys are on the same wavelength.
yeah, and it's just it's again, it's really cool and it's really empowering because we both are able to support each other and I think lift each other up, which
For sure.
is a really cool thing to have.
And it's just rad to see women coming up in skateboarding now.
Yeah,
and
totally.
all that stuff. It's such a beautiful thing.
Totally.
Because
Well-
when we were growing up, it was very few and far
Yeah,
between.
very few.
I'm sure when
yeah,
you were
Yep.
you were a little generation maybe before us starting to skate. So
Yep. There was
very
quite
few.
a few, and then like growing up in Hawaii, I had Jamie Reyes, which
shout out Jamie Reyes.
was again, big time. But again, it was so few, and then it was like what Sasha and the girls that were on
Cara
World,
Burnside,
and Cara
As
Beth.
far as like skateboarders, but on the photography side, I mean, I don't even think there's
not
any.
really.
No.
Where again, it was a cool thing, and again, that's like. She has a book with Adidas. Like, what the fuck? She's doing all this rad stuff. But again, like the thing that I've, seen the most, and I, grew up surfing first, and I was sponsored with that. And then again, I broke out of that because it wasn't me. But being part of Quicksilver and doing that whole thing, I was amongst the best surfers in the world. And it's like the creative mindset that comes out of skateboarders is just completely different than any other thing I've ever seen. Where again, you have people coming in, they're photographers, or they're doing videos, or they're making music, or they're doing brands, and it's just it's a creative thing where again, if like your kids are skateboarding, they're pretty much going to be a creative person in some way or
That's
another.
true.
And,
That's true.
and again, be able to carry on, which is a real
So
cool thing.
you're telling me you see more of it in skateboarders than you do in like surfers
Oh,
and stuff like that too?
100%.
Oh,
Where
interesting.
again, I look at surfing being the big brother, and again, like from when I first started skating, it was to mimic surfing, and it was all about trying to look like Buttons and do that whole thing in the style, and again, it was driveway barrels and that, but again, I was lucky enough to be amongst the best surfers in the world in Hawaii, and then the same thing with later doing with Quicksilver, and you didn't have that.
Yeah.
You didn't have the guys like, look at Artosari, look again, it just, they don't do that. Very few. A lot now, some of the tiered surfers started shaping surfboards. So you had like Simon Anderson, and he invented the 3-fin board they call the thruster, and then you had Shane Horan, and he started doing stuff, but that was like the most of what you had. You didn't have them doing graphics, or you didn't really have that thing, or again, becoming actors or becoming famous directors and
artists,
Tommy playing music. I mean, it in the world of skating, it was just like, wow, and then again, the new generation that started surfing and doing the airs and all that, they all skated. So again, you had guys like Dane Reynolds and Nathan Fletcher and Kristen Fletcher, and those guys had that creative outlet, but again, they skated. Where again, you had Slater, who is by far the greatest surfer, but he couldn't skate. And there would be a ramp, and he could not skate at all. But again, his airs weren't the same as the guys that were skating. So again, even growing up in Hawaii and seeing the Florence brothers and John and all them, and we'd be at a pool, and these kids were like this small, and they're skating the pool. And I remember being like, these kids are going to be the best. And sure enough, because they learn how to do airs and they learn how to skate, they're on it.
Bring it to the water.
And again, I think that same sense is like, what, and even with girls, there's this girl, Zoe, who's a surfer, and she skates. And again, it's like, it is that whole transfer, because again, it's that, there's something about skating that has that creative kind of push with it, which again, surfing is like, the bigger brother that doesn't, but he's surfing,
I wonder what that is. I wonder if it's already in you and and you start skating and it's released, or do you build that up from skateboarding? You know what I mean? I wonder.
I think it's in you. I really think it's in you, and I think that was kind of like my thing growing up. I lived across the street from some of the best surfers, and I started surfing, and then again I got sponsored. But then I went to there was some demo, and there was some guy skating, and it was right there, and I'm like, fuck, there was just something that pulled me. And then again, I got sponsored, and I was young, and when you like the age division, I think it was like 8 to 12. It's called Menahuni, and so I remember going, and I wanted to ride a McCoy board, but I was sponsored by Hawaiian Creations, so I had to ride a HIC board, and I didn't want to. I wanted to ride a McCoy board because all my heroes rode McCoy boards, and so I rode a McCoy board, and then I got chewed out, and I was so bummed, like, this fucking sucks. And then I remember going to the party, and I see guys skating, and I was just like, fuck that, I'm gonna skate. And then luckily, you know, there was a ditch right down the street from my house, which was called Off the Walls, and there was a really gnarly skater named Stacy Gibo, and I just got into that and got into punk rock, and it just never left. Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah,
It's so crazy.
yeah.
So you were in Hawaii, and you were like getting sponsored from surfing, but then
Yep.
you went over to skating.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
What
I just
island?
completely, I was on Oahu.
Oahu.
Yeah, on Oahu.
Is
Yeah.
that like the best island for surfing?
Yeah, because that's where Pipe is, and,
Okay.
and it's you know, that's where a lot of, pretty much out of the Hawaiian Islands, it's got the most recognition. That's where Waimea Bay is.
Right.
You know, I grew up at a beach called Sandy Beach, and then again, you know, a lot of the islands have amazing breaks, but that's kind of like the premier one. That's the one that everyone goes to. Yeah.
I think it's interesting because like when did this transfer kind of happen?
It was
what age? Maybe?
I was probably like 12 years
12
old.
years old.
So like, you know, early 80s.
Yeah, because then I feel like, because then you started shooting photos and skating.
Yeah.
So both of those careers
Yeah.
developed very early.
Yeah.
Like
So-
you started getting published in Thrasher.
Yeah, I got my first photo in Thrasher, which a Roscop ad was when it was 86. I think I was like 15.
Wow.
And that was just because you were there with those guys and you were taking photos.
And so kind of this rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
Johnny Kopp was one of the guys I grew up with, and Johnny Kopp started riding for Hosoi. And back in the day, when you got sponsored, you rode for a pro. It wasn't like you rode for the brand at first. So pros had riders, so you would ride all their stuff. So I rode for Johnny. So I rode Kopp boards and everything that he had. That's what I was riding. And then Christian came in, and I met Christian, and then we just hit it off. And again, it's Christian Hosoi, and so again, that's kind of like, holy shit, there's Christian Hosoi. And then right after that is when this Thrasher and Kevin Thatcher came into town. So all of a sudden I meet Kevin Thatcher and he's shooting photos, and I'm just like, I want to shoot photos. Because again, I knew that just like when I surfed, I met Shane Horan and I met all these guys that were my heroes. All of a sudden it's like, here's Christian Hosoi, here's, you know, these different people. So I'm like, I know this is something important. I want to start shooting. And then at the time too, I met Bryce Kanites and he did both. And then, you know, and then you see Swifty, and then it was like, okay, I can do both. You know, I want to try and do both. So I got sponsored by Vision in, I think it was late 86, and I was on Vision and Independent and Jimmy Z.
Okay.
Thanks to Christian. And then again, I just kept shooting at the same time, was really trying to shoot, because then again, it was like, I met Gonz, I met Tommy, and just, you know, Natas, and just everyone would come to Hawaii because it was like the vacation world. So it was like Christian was there literally every month or every other month he was there.
Wow.
He would always rent a Lincoln Town car. He would rent a second car for all the homies. And then he'd have Block there. He'd have Oster there. He had Murray there. And so it was like, I mean, again, Christian paved my way. He introduced me to everyone and was like me and my brother, who it was Mark and Scott, so we became Moblo and Sablo. And then it was like, oh, go and hang out with Moblo and Sablo. And then my mom and dad were super cool, so my mom would cook breakfast for everyone. So like, I have photos of the mornings at my house with Roscop and Caballero and Tommy Guerrero and Kevin Thatcher. And like, again, it was just like, whoa. And you know, the cool thing was all these guys were fucking cool, and they were all my friends, and no one had the attitude. And again, it was like that whole love of skating, where back then that thing, if you skated, you were a cool. So again, it was like, oh, if you're gonna go to Hawaii, go see these dudes. So then again, it was just like, I mean, everyone was sleeping on my floor, and it's all of a sudden it was like, you know, once again, like Natas is on my floor, and I'm just like, oh, you know, and again, it's like the friendships and the stoke. And again, I'm like, I gotta shoot photos. I gotta start shooting
And that's the
photos.
most interesting part, is because sometimes, like, you know, you're a young kid. I mean, were you like scared almost to take photos of these guys? Or maybe in my back of my mind, I'm like, maybe they wanted him to take photos.
You know,
because they're kind of like,
yeah, it was just everyone
showboating
was
a little.
stoked.
Yeah.
And again, it was like they'd come to Hawaii and again, it was like, there's the beach, there's backyard pools, there's ditches, you know, and then the girls. So it was just like, this is the shit. And everyone would come, and, you know, homes would be woohoo with this, you know, town car smoking joints. And it was just this, again, it was like going to a different country for them.
There you go.
You know, so it just spawned. And again, like, you know, out of nowhere, they had this, we had a demo at this school, and it was, we could say a demo now, but it was a skate jam, but it pre-cell phones, pre-anything, and somehow it was before a contest. I think it was, which contest? It might have been at the Blaisdell, and so all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Gonz is at this thing. Jesse Martinez is there, Christian's there, Cab's there, the Bones guys start showing up. And again, it's just all at the schoolyard, and things are blowing up, and Johnny Kopp's there, and Kevin Konishi, and so I have photos, again, shooting of Jesse Martinez, and it's kind of like Christian was like, those are some of the first wall rides, and it was him doing the wall jams.
Wow.
And again, it was just like witnessing this, and again, being in awe. And it was, the hardest thing was like, I wanted to skate, but also I knew I needed to shoot photos. So it was like, okay, I'm going to kind of do a little bit, because again, you're like, I want to skate with my heroes, and I have photos of Wallows, and literally we all did this jam, and then we got kicked out of the school, and then everyone went to Wallows, and it's literally like Gonz, Jesse Martinez, Rob Roskop, Keith Meek, Christian Hosoi, Gator, and I mean, it just went on and on and on. And again, it was like, then all of a sudden there was hundreds of kids lining the ditch. And again, it was like and I'm like, how did they even know?
Right.
But yeah, it just turned into this. And again, and then after that, then the connection with the Powell guys. And then they're like, okay, we're going to film Animal Chin here. And Stacy hits us up. Can you take us to Wallows? And, I mean, being there when they're filming Animal Chin. And again, like Lance Mountain was someone I loved and mimicked and wanted to be like. And all of a sudden he's there and Tony's there. And I mean, it was amazing. And I mean, even at that time, Lance is still the same guy, where I remember Tony Hawk was sitting on his board, like vertically, like sitting on it that way. Mm-hmm. And then Lance is standing there, and all of a sudden Lance shoots the board at Tony's board, and wham, and then Tony slams. And I'm just like, Lance Mountain just made Tony Hawk eat shit, and you're just like, wow, but it was like that beginningness, and watching them do the video and watching them film the video, and again, having no idea that this thing is going to be as impactful as it was. And next thing you know, you see the video, and it's like, holy shit, that's a skateboarding video.
Right.
You're a part of a lot of incredible moments, man.
Yeah, I mean, that again, like, it's never stopped. Right. And that's the beauty of, like, again, being in skateboarding since the 80s, and really, like, watching that whole thing go down, and even, going from being in Hawaii and growing up there, and then again, like, meeting Hartzell and becoming friends with Jeff. And when I first met Jeff, we're at a ramp called the Red Hill ramp. And again, we went with Christian, and then I saw Jeff, and I thought he was straight from Asia. I didn't think he spoke English, and I'm like, so hot, and he's just like, motherfucker, I'm from Jersey, and it was just like, whoa. And then, so again, hitting it off with Jeff and JT, John Thomas, and then they decided to move to Venice, and then it was like, I'm moving to Venice, because again, then at that time too was Christian, and he was bringing Oster and Jesse and Murray and all those guys, and then we became super close with those guys. So then again, it's like moving to Venice and watching Venice at that time when the wall ramps and all that, and that,
the scene was so heavy, man. And Prejo. I remember going a couple times as a little kid and just was like, what the fuck is this?
And then meeting Eric Britton, Tuma, and then and then a kid named Uhuru that was a Hawaii kid, and he passed, rest in peace. But and being a part of Joey Tran and Little Man, and then again being in that whole Venice scene, and it being so gnarly too at that point, where like someone would walk by and be like, "Fuck Venice," and Jesse, and it was like,
go at it,
right? And so again, by the time I was there, living there for probably like a year and a half, I saw 3 people get killed, and literally I was just like, I can't be around this is gnarly, and whatever. But at that same time is when I met Reem, and Kareem's showing up at the park, and he would use metal bushings. He had metal bushings or risers, like what's it, like his risers or cushions weren't, that he'd use washers. That's what it was. Metal washers so his trucks wouldn't turn. And it was like,
that's where Daywan got it from.
I know, right?
But it was like Daywan's was super loose.
Yeah.
Kareem's was tight as his board wouldn't turn. He'd put metal bushing or washers in there so his trucks wouldn't turn.
And
he could skate that. And it was like him, and then Fabian Alomar,
Yeah.
and then Miracle Magnum. And so then we started doing castle contests.
Yeah.
And then we went to a backyard pool in Venice, and that's when Kareem came in, and he couldn't turn in the pool. So all of a sudden, that's when he started using normal cushions. And I mean, again, even seeing Kareem go from like being on Powell and then quitting Powell and then going to World, and then, you know, Jesse threatening to break his legs, and like, you know, I mean, but the craziness of all that. But again, like watching these at the same point, watching skateboarding just rise up, and, you know, being there with Natas and Julian. And I remember days of like following them around, and I would be behind them, literally like my jaws dragging on the floor, just skating with them. And that was when they first started doing nollies, and they're nolling up curbs and just nolling down. And I'm just like in awe of all this stuff. And at the time I was still on Vision, and then they wanted me to have a part in the Alphabet Soup video. And I'm like, I don't want to have a part. I don't want to have a part. Because weirdly enough, with like Bo Akeda and the whole deal with Bo, I watched Bo turn pro. And then I also watched then all of a sudden the pressures of being pro. So I witnessed that for the first time, of like having to film a part and having to do a contest. And Bo was so anti.
Right.
And it was like, people were like, oh, he's lame. And I'm like, no, he's a purebred. He can't handle what this was. So I remember watching that go down. And then at the time I was on Vision, I went on a tour of Vision, and it was me, Buck Smith, Mike Crum, and Chris Gentry. And we went across country, and we towed a mini ramp. And again, I'm like, I was 19 at the time, and Gentry and Crum were 16. And they're doing McTwist, and I mean, they were killing it. And I'm like, what am I doing? You know, and then everyone quit Vision to go and do World. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we want to turn you pro. And they want to turn me and Marco Size pro. And I'm like, I don't want to go pro. This is gnarly. And then I was like, I want to be a team manager, so I can go everywhere you guys go. I can skate everywhere, and I don't have to deal with any of the pressure.
Right.
So I literally transferred in and became a first TM assistant at Vision. And then I started, at the time, I don't know if you saw, but Vision shoes started popping up like Kareem. I was talking with Tommy. I mean, and I started getting a lot of good kind of movement going. And all of a sudden it was like, whoa, this guy kind of knows what he's doing. And then Jim Gray was there at the time. And then Jim Gray's like, hey, I'm going to split and start Acme. I want you to come and be my guy.
Okay.
So then that was kind of like the thing of like, cool, I can get out of the pressure and not have to deal with crazy ass Dorfman and, you know, bolt over to here and work with Jim, you know. And then that was like really starting to be, okay, finding a team and, you know, going through sponsor me tapes, and, you know, and building that whole setup, which again,
and you were already in there, bro. I mean, all the people that you named, I was just like, this is going to be, it seems like it was like easier for you to kind of.
Yeah, because I was friends with all those guys, you know, and I mean, there was even a point where like Dorfman wanted Vallely, so I was talking to Vallely, and it was funny. It was like at Neil Blender's ramp, which again was like at a craze to skate Neil Blender's crazy tight ramps with all this thing, and I'm like at Neil Blender's ramp, and Vallely shows up, and I'm just like, Mike, you got to skate for Vision. He's like, I don't want to. And I'm like, Brad will buy you a Harley. Like, he'll get me a Harley. Like, come on. And he's just like, dude, yeah. And
you really said that?
Oh, yeah. He's straight up. He's like, if you can get him, I'll get you a Harley. Because he had all these Harleys all over the place, you know?
What?
And it was just like, you know, and Mike's like, no way, I ain't doing this stuff, you know? And I mean, crazy I mean, even like the fact of being there and being friends with Gator, and then talking to Gator, and then literally the next day being at Vision and watching the news, and all of a sudden Gator's in prison for murder. And it was just like
the next day.
Yeah, and the day I talked to him, the day before, he said something in the lines of like, you can lie to your friends, but you can't lie to yourself. And I'm just like, that was like the ending hanging up. And then literally I called him the day that he was on the news, called the house before it was there, and I'm like, is Mark? And someone picks up the phone. Was Mark there? And there's like, who is this? I'm all, who the fuck is this? You know, we're calling for Mark. And it's like, this is the sheriff department. And I was like, click.
Oh my.
And then boom, it's on the news. And then literally Dorfman's throwing up. I mean, it was just like shock, you know? And then that was like the same point of like, I got to get out of here. This is just too weird. And
wow. What year was that again, man?
Oh God, I want to.
Was that like 88?
Yeah, 88 or 89.
Right.
Man, it's heavy stuff, you know, especially when stuff goes down like that in skateboarding.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty
well. Again, it's
pretty gnarly.
You know, I mean, for me, managing guys, and that's like crazy of like in all the years and of all the brands I've been with, and a lot of people come from shitty families, or they don't have families, and they're in a thing, and that's when skateboarding becomes that to them. And again, it's like, you know, for me, it's just like I want to help as many people as I can through this, because again, I had good parents and still to this day are supportive and loving, and they backed me all the way through my dreams, and, you know, struggled to get me the things that I needed. And you know, again, I see so many people in skating that don't, and that's again why they come into this world, because it's a family. And, you know, again, going, you know, I want to help these people and try and uplift them. And, you know, again, being mentored by Mike Ternasky and having that whole thing and watching what he did for his guys. And I was always like, I'm going to be like Mike. I want to help like Mike and be a real manager and be a real team guy, not just driving a van and, you know, do whatever the fuck you want. You know,
he was all in everybody, the business, and making sure that they were doing the right thing.
Yeah, and he helped me at the time. I mean, after Acme, I left Acme, and again, for me, I really loved Jim Gray, but I didn't believe in his philosophies, and he had the no pro boards, and he you know, guys shouldn't have a pro model, and I'm like, well, you had a pro model, and there's guys, you know, like Bo and Quee and Remy Stratton, and, you know, a lot of good guys, Matt Reason,
especially back then.
Yeah, and he did a weird cut thing where they'd get a cut of all the boards that were sold, but again, it was, I liked Jim, and I couldn't take the check, so I left working with him, and I had no job. And then that's when I went to Think, and I did Think for a bit. And then it was kind of just hard because I was in Orange County, and I would have to drive to San Francisco and whatever. And then it just kind of got a little bit crazy dealing with the Think stuff. And then at that point, from Think,
where was Acme? Was that
Acme was in Orange County.
It was in Orange. So you went from Orange County up north, or were you managing stuff from Orange County? I was managing
from Orange County,
okay,
and they had me doing that. And then at the time,
I was going to say, where was the Ternasky connection?
Well, that came. So I did Think, and then again, it was just like kind of having a hard time. But then at the same point, it was like Greg Carroll was there, and it was like, well, it's kind of like they have two TMs.
Yeah, he's got it. Yeah,
so it's kind of like, you know, I'm going to bounce. And then at that time, I had Race Wheels. They're like, you can have your own wheel company. So I did Race Wheels, and then I got Markovich. And then that kind of started my relationship with Kris. And then from then, we did Color Skateboards.
Oh, wow.
So then I was doing Color, and then we built Color, Jeremy Ray. I mean,
that was a great video.
Yeah.
Bro.
Which again, I filmed, edited, like,
so
you had to do all that back then.
Yeah.
So then,
did Jeremy Ray have first part, or was it the first part? In the Color
I don't think it was first. I think it was Kris
Markovich.
But anyway, yeah. So then we did Color, and then at that time too, Metaverse started doing all the sketchy stuff, and you know, like Jeremy was riding for a different wheel company, and then all of a sudden we go to the warehouse and there's Jeremy Ray Color Wheels, and like just he was a sketchy bastard, and he was ripping us off. So then at that point, that's when the Mike T connection came, and Mike T wanted me to come in and help run the team for Plan B.
What year was this? 91, 92?
The years, I couldn't, probably 93.
90,
but then he wanted me to come in and do that, and then he wanted just Kris and Jeremy Ray. But we had Mike Crum, we had Kane Gale, and I was just like, dude, I can't, you know. And even Kris was like, nah. But then, I basically was like, hey, Jeremy, you go here, because it's better for you, because Kris was shadowing him, and it was.
Wait a minute. So I'm confused. So wait, so you went from Color.
No, I was still doing Color at the time.
You were still doing Color.
Yeah, at the time, and then that was when I started talking with Ternasky.
Okay.
And then Ternasky was super interested in Jeremy and a little bit with Kris.
Okay.
And then, but that was like it. And it was like me and those two. And then it was like, well,
he wanted you to be like team manager.
Yeah, me to be team manager.
But then what?
Those two.
Huh?
Prime Skateboards.
Yeah. So then,
Prime.
Yeah.
So
so then what happened was, again, Kris and Jeremy were kind of having that thing. Jeremy was coming up. It was basically Kris's team, Kris's crew. So it was kind of like he was kind of holding him down a little bit. So I was like, hey, you know what? Go here. It's way better for you to go here. You belong here. And then because I did that, Ternasky was like, I got you. And then so at that time is when Girl and all those guys were bailing out. And so then they said, you can do a company and you could do Prime at World. And so then that's kind of what started me with World.
Okay.
You know, and again, big ups to Mike, because he formed that. And, then started doing that. And then it was kind of like, okay, now we have our own thing.
Starting a company through World at that time, was it your company or was it just like, hey, here's a project for you? So there's no paperwork.
Yeah. Well, so again, there was some paperwork, but it wasn't the most legit paperwork. But basically, me and Kris had ownership, and Rocco gave us everything. Okay. So again, for me, my experience with Rocco was great.
Sure.
Rocco really hooked me up. He, gave me and Kris part of the company. We'd get a royalty from the company. I mean, he gave me a car. Like, he was really cool with me. Yeah, we got along really well.
And that question wasn't so much about Rocco, but back then too. I mean, they weren't trademarking Plan B.
Exactly.
They weren't trademarking companies' names. It was just kind of like the Wild Wild West.
Yes.
So that's why I was wondering.
So to come back and weirdness, but I was with Mike and we went to a Vancouver contest, and Mike was like, I'm going to make up with all my enemies.
Yeah.
And literally said that, I'm going to make up with all my enemies. And he started talking to all the girl guys and like shaking their hand. And he's like squashing all the beef. And this was on the weekend. And literally, I went to work on Monday, and he was driving to work on Monday, and he got hit by the lady and died.
Right.
And it was devastation because, again, it was like, okay, here's my mentor, and this fucking happens. And then again, the weirdness of like, how ironic that he's like, I'm going to squash the beef with all these people. And again, going up and shaking hands and making it all cool, which again, only Mike could do. So then after Mike was gone, a guy named Frank Messman came in. And Frank Messman kind of came in. And at that point in time, too, Rocco was kind of like, he made a shitload of money and he was kind of like over it. And he wanted to be in Hawaii and golf and do his thing. So it was like, okay, Messman's going to run all the brands now.
Okay.
So when Messman came in, and that was the thing, and then, anytime for us, we would get into a pitch where we weren't making money, we'd film a video. And as soon as we'd film a video, we'd make bank, and it was like crazy because you'd sell so many videos back then, where that's where it's like,
For sure.
You'd sell 40 to 60,000 videos.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it would pull us out and we would do whatever. So we came in, and that was the thing. Like, they come in, they're like, well, you guys owe money because you're not having money. You guys aren't making money. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a video. We're going to make a video. So then we make the video, and we make all this, and we make all this money. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we have all this money. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to just pay back all your debt. And I'm like, well, can we make payments? Can we, take this? Oh, it's all cool. It's all cool. Don't worry about it. And so what would happen is we'd get our royalty things every month, and then we'd have to pay the riders and take care of everyone. So then all of a sudden, Rocco's gone.
What a way to kill a company.
Yeah, Frank's there. And all of a sudden it's like, comes in and he's like, it's the first. So I come in to do the paychecks for everyone. And he's just like, oh, you don't have any money. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Last month we sold this many videos. And he goes, well, yeah, you had to pay your debt and you guys don't have any money. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? What are you? And he goes, what are you going to do? How are you going to pay your guys? And I'm like, panic. Because even me, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to, and panic. And all of a sudden it's like, slides paper over, sign your company over. And he did the same thing to fucking Natas. He did the same thing to Cream because Frank was profit share. Wow. So and he's going, why are you paying Natas and Mark and Cream and all these guys? I can make the money. So he literally screwed us. And again, I'm sitting there like at the same time, not knowing anything, being a young kid. And it's like, sign this paper over and that's it. And the company's yours and you'll still get a royalty and whatever. And it was like being pigeoned. So then I did that. And then at the time, they had me doing Prime. They had me doing Speed Demons. They had me doing, and again, like I got Muska. I got all these good guys on Speed Demons, and their other, it was like a wheel and a bearing. I can't remember what it was. But then all of a sudden, Rodney started having me drive the world tours. And I'm like, Rodney, I can't handle your guys. Like I can't handle LeVar and all these guys and Clyde and, and it's just like, no, you got to do it. You got to do it. And then I went on a tour and it was fucking hell. And I couldn't control it. And, LeVar's like sitting in the back seat of the car staring at me. And he's like, I don't know you, fucking Mark Oblow. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And then everyone buys guns and they're shooting BB guns and paintball guns from van to van. We get to a hotel, they blast up the hotel. And then, of course, like they know it's us. I mean, and it was nuts. So then basically I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Right. And at the time I was helping do Duffs. And so there was an owner of Duffs who was bailing Duffs. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of when the Vita started to talk about starting Vita. And then also at the time, Paul Schmidt, and he had PS Sticks rolling, and there was a guy named Mike Puss that was working there, and they were doing that. And then so it was just like, well, I knew the same point. There was a guy named Doug who was the guy at World doing all the boards, and that's who came from Powell and took the actual bends. So he left Powell and brought that screen process with them. And so all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, why don't we start a screen shop? We could do a screen shop that makes screens all of the boards for PS Sticks. So it's like, okay, cool.
Screening a lot of boards.
So I'm like, okay, so we'll do this, and then and then I'll do that, and then I'll start doing the shoe thing, right?
So you had left World?
No, I hadn't left yet.
Not yet.
Because again, I was still going to do Prime.
But you were still doing Prime.
I was still doing Prime, but I was doing.
You had signed over your company
but I was still
back to them. Yeah. Still working for them.
And also doing Speed Demons and
so you were still getting a paycheck.
Yeah, I was still getting a paycheck.
And then now they were taking care of the Prime. Did you like how they were?
Well, no, I was still doing Prime.
You were still doing everything.
But again, it was like, went from having ownership to
nothing,
having a paycheck, and then again trying to take care of all Rodney's stuff, which I couldn't handle. So then it was just like, okay, I'm gonna leave and do this wood shop.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna maybe do the shoe thing because it was still in talks.
Slowly get out of there.
But I'm gonna just do Prime. I don't want to do Speed Demons, and I don't want to do any of that.
Because Prime went out of business eventually.
After we left, yes. So then just the it gets deeper.
Yeah, I love it.
So at that point,
I'm just trying to follow it's because this is
it goes
detailed.
Nuts, yes.
Yeah.
So then at the time I was roommates with Johnny Schilleroff.
Okay.
And Johnny was doing Element. And so
Underworld Element or Element?
Well, it started as Underworld, but he left.
Okay.
Or not he left, but Andy left, and the whole original crew, and it was kind of like, I think
Underworld.
the same thing. It was
he
Bad
was
Bud,
okay.
and he took the Underworld, and then Johnny slashed the name off and said Element, and then it was like his new company, which was like, no, it's Underworld Element.
Yeah.
But so then they came to me, Steve, Douglas, and Johnny, and they're like, hey, we want you to be our TM.
Okay.
And then they're like, oh, well, da-da-da. And then at the time they offered me, this is what we're going to pay you. And I'm like, well, that's way less than what I'm making. And they're like, oh, well, it's, you're working with friends and all this. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm working with friends here. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. It's all cool. So then Douglas gets word of the wood shop, and he calls Rocco. And he goes, Rocco, Oblow's come to me and asked me to be our team guy, but he wanted way too much money. So I told him no. And he's starting a wood shop or a screen shop with your boy Doug, and da-da-da.
Who's Steve Douglas?
Yeah. And so next thing you know, I got Rocco calling me, saying he's going to break my fucking legs.
From Hawaii, he's probably calling.
And again, I knew all Rocco's stories and his thug dudes because I knew who he started the business with and all that. I mean, I was aware of all that shit. And so all of a sudden, I'm just like, holy shit, Rocco's threatening me. And again, there went my paycheck. There went everything. It went just gone, right? Out of nowhere. And I was like, Douglas, what the fuck is that all about? And he goes, oh, well, we had our distribution with him, and I didn't want him to think that I stole you or did anything because he did New Deal UK. And he goes, it's cool, right? I'm like, it's cool? Like, he's threatening my life. So I had to call the police and file a report because I didn't know if Rocco was going to fucking kill me.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I had to file a report and all this stuff. And then we started to do the screen shop, which was Indian Ink. And then the Duffs thing kind of became more where Lance was the original guy, Duffs, and he kind of got pushed out. And then it was like, okay, let's start Vita. Yeah. So then it was like, okay, I'm going to start doing Vita.
Is that Lance Theus?
What's that?
Lance Theus?
Yes.
Lance Theus.
Yeah. And then it was, I'm going to do the screen shop. So at first I was running the screen shop. And at that point in time, it was the same thing where all of a sudden I started bringing everybody in. So we were screening everybody's boards. And the screen shop went ballistic.
I'm sure.
And then again, it was like this craziness, but it was my first time of like, I had to work the night shift and I was just like, I can't do this. Like I want to be out, And then again, that was like, okay, let's start Vita. So,
but you're starting Vita. Did you started just bootstrapped or did you have an investor?
No, well, that was Lance. Lance was the guy because he also had the connections with the factories and all that stuff.
So he was the money guy.
Yeah, because Lance was the original guy with Soltech. He worked with Soltech, and then he's the guy that came to Duffs and brought Duffs with Rocco. And then, at the time I didn't know, but they figured out what he was about and they pushed him out. So then he came to me, and then again we started that. And then at that time too, Natas was out of the industry. He was working for Rage, and he wasn't stoked. But at the same point, it was like he went and tried to figure out something new and getting out of his, getting pulled out of his company the same way as all of us. And then so I approached Natas and was like, hey, let's do this brand. You can come in and you do all the, the art and the creative, and let's start this shoe company, and we'll call it Vita. And I came up with the name, and it was Vita equals life. And it was skateboarding's the life. And then Natas came up with these crazy ads that were like amazing with the baby and just like this whole thing and the logo and the script and that.
I loved that company.
Yeah,
I loved
and
it.
so again, we had Vita, and we were struggling for a long time because of issues with Lance, and again trying to deal with money issues.
The shoe company too. It's
not
very
the
expensive.
easiest thing.
Can I ask you a really quick question though? When you were working with all these companies, were you doing any of the art and photography and stuff like that?
I did a little bit of art
for Prime.
I
and
did a
all
little
that
bit of
stuff?
art.
Okay.
I did a little bit of photography. I kind of did a little bit of everything. I managed the teams.
Okay.
And then I also, though, too, of like, being friends with McKee or Cliver and, Judson Bryant and like all this stuff, like was like getting those guys to do. So like, like we did the Keto P getting grinded up because Rocco's like, you got to do cute graphics, got cute. And I'm like, cute graphics. So then it was like taking all the Hello Kitty stuff and like putting them in meat grinders and like, but Cliver did all that. And then it was, but I also was like, I knew that there was such talented people that anytime I could get them, I would get them to do it.
Cliver and McKee at the time were just
untouchable.
Gnarly.
Untouchable. So yes, I was doing a little bit, shooting a little bit of the ads, and doing that.
Got you.
And then Vita was way more. I was doing a lot. I started doing shoe design and kind of working with that. And that's kind of how the shoe thing went. And then
Did you design all of those shoes?
Not all, but I kind of had a key into it. And then Natas came, and Natas did his shoe completely.
That was his own design.
He did it all himself, which was insane.
That's one of the...
That
shoe's iconic.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when Jason came in, it was like a Timberland style rip off and that kind of thing. Jason Dill.
Jason Dill.
And then, we had Kenny Hughes. I mean, we had Gideon Choi, Danny Garcia, and
Rob Plahowski.
Yep, Rob Plahowski. And then
on paper, dude, I mean,
and so
great.
Reese Forbes.
Reese Forbes, Forbinator, 100%. So then at that time too, we were always having money issues. So we needed to try and find a guy to come in and do money. But at the meantime, I knew Quicksilver and I knew Danny Kwok, who was one of the founders of Quicksilver. And basically I was like, hey, you guys need a team. And how about I come in and give you a team? And then you guys can pay me, and then you guys can fly my team everywhere.
Okay.
So it was kind of like and then all of a sudden Danny's
that pitch.
Yeah,
That's a good pitch.
And then
Right
Danny
to
was like, "Hey, we're talking to Tony, but we can't get through because of his sister was the agent."
Tony
he goes,
Hawk,
"If you can get Tony, done deal." So I called Tony. I'm like, "Hey, I got Jason Dill, I got Reese Forbes, I got Heath Kirchart. We want you. Will you do?" And he's like, "Hell yeah," because he was doing 55 DSL. So then all of a sudden, boom, we start doing Quicksilver. So then that's kind of like how the Quicksilver thing started. And same thing, as soon as I got in there and going there, I'm like, you guys need Natas to start doing graphics. You need Natas to do your ads. So at first he started just doing skate. Then he started doing snow. And then he just took over, made the script writing and all that stuff. But then we ended up finding a partner to come in, this guy named Jeff Lewis, who was like a money guy. And he was like a Newport Beach millionaire. He had $100 million car collection. He had a Budweiser distribution. And so this guy comes in and he slowly starts taking over. And then we started realizing, wow, he's an idiot. Lance is an idiot. Like, he's full of shit. And so all of a sudden...
Why are you thinking Lance is full of shit?
Because he started lying, and then I started catching stuff that he was doing, where I thought before it was for reasons, but all of a sudden start figuring that out. Because again, I started getting older as well and started getting more into what was happening. Yeah. So then all of a sudden it was like, okay, so we got this guy, Jeff Lewis. He came in and he wanted to have a job for his son. So that was kind of like, oh, I'll just buy this company and then my son can work in the warehouse. So we end up getting him in there. He comes more and more. And then next thing you know, we push Lance out. So Lance is gone. So then we needed someone to run the company. And so weirdly enough, at the time, my dad said, hey, I'll come in and run the company. I'll do it for a year. You don't have to pay me. I'll flip it around. And then at that point, you could start to pay me. So he makes the deal with the guy. Everything's cool. And then again, we finally started to flip around. We brought in a guy named Amir. He started doing shoe design, and the whole thing starts flipping. We actually were going to show the first profit. We started doing runners. Like we had all this rad momentum. Yeah. Well, turns out Mr. Lewis owned Sobe Iced Tea, and he sold Sobe Iced Tea and made $60 million, and he needed a loss. So he comes in and goes, guess what, guys? Friday, Monday, we're done. Closed. What? Company's done. My dad's like, yo, wait, what, like, let me buy it. Let me, the distributors, everyone's
then he
like.
won't get his tax thing.
No tax thing. So, done, cut.
Wow.
And then that ended Vita. Damn. You know, but luckily at the time, the momentum with Quicksilver was going. Right, so again, that was kind of like the floater. And then again, Kenny got on DC, Reese got on Nike. So every guy got snapped up in a matter of seconds.
It all worked out for the guys, but it just sucks that type of stuff can happen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it happens on a regular basis, but just in skateboarding, it hits closer to home.
Yeah, and again, it's
these
like
guys,
that,
paychecks.
Yeah, and it's like
that dude didn't care about skateboarding.
Yeah, and it's like the amount of love and the passion, and again, like for me to struggle that whole entire time and be like, again, like go through all the stuff with Lance and all the stuff of getting this, and again,
when in this dude's mind, he's probably just like,
and it's just like,
I'm just gonna dead this.
Yeah,
in a
like
bit.
I don't care. It didn't matter. And then again, that was like my first real thing of like, fuck, business fucking sucks. You know,
Harley,
like people are just fucked. So yeah, and I mean, again, my dad, who at the time, you know, my dad and I, that's when we really realized that we were so much alike. And again, like we'd be in meetings and we'd say the same shit, like, holy shit, Dad, you're cool as fuck. You know, and we really, and thankfully for
that's
that,
a good part
it made us really good. But then again, it fucked my mom and my dad up because now all of a sudden they used all their money for that year and then screws my father over. So I'm sitting there with that guilt and that pressure of like, dude, I just fucking took Dad's retirement and fucked it. And, you know, but, you know, it also is part of the process or whatever. And then at the time, it was doing Quicksilver. And then the Quicksilver thing went crazy. And that was a good thing for a while. And then.
Did this guy with the money, did he just come into Vita? And was he just an influx of money, or was he trying to run it?
Well, no. He came in at first, and it was just a small portion when Lance was there. Okay. Lance found him, and he came in and was a small guy, and then slowly took over. So
he essentially pushed Lance out.
Yes. And again, me and Natas didn't want Lance there, so we were
so
like,
it was a win-win.
Yeah. So we were like, perfect, have Jeff do it, and then that was the whole thing where Jeff's like, you need someone to run the company, right? And then that's when my dad came in, and I mean, he killed it. He literally flipped that thing around, and he killed it.
Looking back at it now, were there any signs that this guy was eventually just going to like dead the brand?
There was no signs of that, but there was just the huge disconnect of sitting with this dude. And again, like we would go to eat lunch and he'd take me and my dad and we'd go to eat lunch and then he would tip the waitress 50 cents.
Damn.
And my dad would walk out and then go, oh, I forgot something. And he'd walk back in and leave a tip. And so all of a sudden was like, he's a fucking prick.
Wow.
Like, what's this guy's problem? And again, his arrogancy was out there. You know, you're like, he's a money guy. Yeah. He's a money guy. He's a billionaire. He's out of the mind rich. You know, and so there wasn't, again, if he didn't sell, if he didn't sell Sobe, we would probably have still been going. But
that's a crazy
needed
connection.
I
had never knew that was there.
Yeah.
Sobe and Vita.
Yeah.
Hey, Sobe sponsored Andy McDonald.
Yeah.
It's the first drink.
First and only, huh?
Yeah.
I mean,
but if there are other guys,
but it was pretty much the first drink sponsor in skateboarding.
No doubt.
And everybody made fun of Andy McDonald for riding for him.
Yeah.
But because of that, Vita went out of business. And I always there was a funny joke growing up at my skate shop I grew up at. It's called Jay's Board Shop in Laguna Hills.
Yep.
First full rep flow I ever got was from Vita.
Yeah.
I got 2 pairs of shoes. I got the Natas and some other pair of shoes. Next month, company went out of business. Yeah. And they're like, dude, Kelly, look what you did, bro.
Yeah.
He's fucking gets.
Well,
I would have blamed you too.
That was kind of one of our strategies was I was like, I'm just going to give shoes out nonstop. And once they try them, they're going to like them, you know? And again, it was like, I'm going to hook. And so we started promoting shoes. And again, people would wear them, be like, these are sick, you know? And it just started kind of to take place, you know?
Just think about that. I mean, like that kind of stuff, the 50 cents bums you out and everything, but just that's the business mindset of like running a company. And then just a Monday morning, it's done.
Yeah, and that's where
when you're leaving all these people without jobs,
and
without
then,
anything.
And then he was like, "You guys take care of shutting it all down."
Right.
And it was like, "Go fuck yourself." So we were like, "Who wants shoes? Come and get as many as you want. Who wants a table?" Like we just fucking murdered the place, stole everything out of there, and it was like, "Go fuck yourself." I mean, to this day, my dad is still fucking pissed. Like my dad's like, I'll fucking kick his ass. Like my dad's a Brooklyn, New York guy. Like I'll fucking kill him. I'll break his fucking legs. You know, I'm like, Dad, it's cool. It's cool.
So everything no contact happens with him ever. Just
I saw him maybe once or twice. You know, because was living in Newport and random, but saw him and his wife. Whatever. And it was just like, whatever. You're a fucking kook. You know, karma. Yeah. You know, but. Scumbag ass.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, Natas did the Vita logo and the Quicksilver.
Yep.
Right. I could see the correlation there. I never thought about that, but it makes sense now.
And then
Natas is talented.
Oh, he again, for me growing up, Natas and Gonz were my biggest influences as artists and as skaters. And then again, to this day, they still are. Where Natas could shoot photos, Natas could fucking draw, Natas could illustrate, he could do characters, he could do videos, he again his skating and stuff. But again, his creative mind was, I mean, again, I think he's one of the most talented guys that could do anything. And then when he came into Quicksilver, he started just killing it. And again, coming up with these ideas of things that they've never even thought of. Like he built this crazy tank, like a fish tank, and was shooting the trunks in the fish tank. And I mean, just like mind blowing. And it was just like, you know, at the time, right at the cusp, David Carson was there. And David Carson's this award-winning designer, and he's making all this money. And I'm sitting there like, because he was doing the majority of the design at the time, and Natas was just doing the skate and the snowboards. And we're in meetings, and then they're bringing out these photos, and it's like all these people, and I'm just like, this stuff sucks. Like, and no one else at the table, everyone's like, this is killer. And I'm like, this stuff sucks. And then people are like, oh, yeah, it sucks. And then it was like, dude, Natas should do all this. And then, of course, Natas, they gave him everything. And he became the creative director of the brand or whatever. Right. And I mean, and again, he changed it. He changed the whole thing. And, you know, and then at that time, but for me was, you know, that was such a surf company. And it was so surf turkey. We say surf turkey because that's what they are. And it was just nothing that the skaters did mattered. And I had Arto and I had Bastion, and I mean I had Dylan Rieder, and again, these guys are killing it, and nothing mattered. And I remember like coming up like, look, Dylan got the cover, and it'd be like, oh yeah, cool, so and so might get the cover of Surf, and it was like, might what, like that. And then
they were just so focused, they were hyper focused on what it was.
And they've always been like that.
And they didn't care. And so for me, I'm like, my guys aren't getting the recognition that they need. And then the funny thing of all of it too was they didn't have contracts. Their contracts all lapsed. And again, I wasn't pushing them because they wanted to sign shitty contracts. So I was like, don't worry about it. Just get paid. We'll figure it out. So basically, then that's what happened was then Burton, there was the president at the time, this guy Laurent was the president of Burton. And then I started getting wind that they needed to get a skate team, and they wanted to make a crew and, you know, whatever. So I met with the president and sat down with him, and he was just like, skateboarders are the guys. They rule everything. Burton needs the influence from skateboarders, and we want to do this. We want to make a shoe company. We've had Gravis, and Gravis has gone nowhere. It has no roots. The only way it can have roots is if you do skate. So then at the time I was like, okay, you know, I got to figure this out. And I started like thinking, okay, how can I do this? And then at the same time, Reese was really helping me out a lot with Quick. And so, and then at the same time too, I know they wanted to start cutting people and all this stuff. And so I'm sitting there going, okay, how can I do this? And then I thought, okay, I'm going to bail. I'm going to take Arto, I'm going to take Bastion, I'm going to take Stefan, and I'm going to take Dylan. And I'm going to leave Reese. And Reese, at that time, we had Alex. Reese got Alex, and then Reese, there was the other guys. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to let Reese run quick. And then again, that gives him a career, and that gives him a second life. And then I'm going to come and do this thing with Gravis and analog.
Got you.
And so, I mean, at the time, still being young and being super scared. And again, Reese is a really close friend of mine, but also I was so scared the shit out of him. So I was like, and the one thing I wish I had done sooner was I wish I told him my plan before I did the plan.
You didn't even tell him.
I didn't tell him until we quit. And then that was...
What was the reasoning? Why didn't you tell him?
Because I was so afraid of what he was going to do, or I was so afraid that he
you're basically pulling a whole team out from under him as well.
Yes, and taking the best guys in a sense, And so it was just like, a fear factor, truly.
Sure.
And then again, I had to go to Reese's house, and I went there and talked to him, and of course he was fucking pissed, but he understood, and again, he was a good friend of mine, so it was just like, all right, and it was a little tense for a little while, but again, I think he figured and realized, and again, it was a good thing for him because then he was able, and that he brought in Austin, he started using Bill, and it became his thing,
right?
Where again, my guys, my filmer, so again, it really kind of gave him a push into that, like, okay, here you go.
Totally, he killed it with that, man.
And he killed it. Yeah. No, he totally did, and so then we started to do analog and Gravis, and then that was an insane run, and again, I think we changed a shitload of stuff in the way that it worked, especially with doing Gravis and the way that we did that. And we had Kelly Kakuta came in, and he was our designer, and he was a talented dude. And then Dylan was really, at that time he left Vans, Arto left Soltech, and then Stefan was on Xavier. And then, so then those guys came in, and then, or sorry, not Stefan. Stefan was on analog. But then, so we started doing with just Dylan and Arto. And then Dylan the whole time was like, I want to make a Vans slip-on, but I want it to be thinner. I want it to be narrow. I want it to be, this small little thing. And he was so adamant about pushing this side of this. So then that's kind of when we came up. So I had found a Gucci shoe that was pretty much the silhouette of the top, but it was laced and whatever. And I was like, dude, is this like where you're looking at? And he was like, yes. So then we took that, and then Kelly and Dylan came up with the sole, and just the inserts and just the way it sat on his foot. And so we really started trying to push that. And again, my big thing too with Gravis was like, I want no logos on the shoe.
Right.
And they're like, what? I'm on no logos. But that was part of the thing with me going there with the president was I have 100% control. Yeah. Not one person can tell me what to do. And they're like, yep, no worries. So again, I took every logo off the shoe. I came up with the 4 dots because it was 4 wheels and it was 4 skateboarding. And then my thing was
they didn't even have the 4 dots before the...
No. None of it. So then that came in. So the top corner was Arto, and he was black. Dylan was gold. So each guy would have a color and represent what the wheel was. So if you saw the shoe, and where it would be highlighted, if you're a skater, oh, that's Dylan's shoe, that's Arto's shoe,
Wow.
And again, it was like to try and pull off, so you see on Arto's, like see the gold. Wow. Arto was gold, Dylan was black. Yeah. So see on the box, like if you pull the magazine. Yeah. So that kind of became that. And again, we had no logos. I
didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, again,
did you know that? I didn't know that either.
Well, because again, we got canned before we started going.
But dude, I will say this too. That company, as a kid, I was like, that company, before you came in, I was like, I don't know what's going on with that company.
Yeah,
it was
crazy.
Random.
It was crazy.
Super random. Yeah. And then you came in, I was like, damn, they're actually doing cool shit.
Well, and I think even when Dylan came out with his shoe, it was kind of like, whoa, this is interesting. This is different.
It pushed the boundaries, and we did a shoe called the Filter, and then we did another shoe which was originally going to be the Filter, which was a lot like the Vans Classic, but it was like a high top, kind of almost like a half cab. Sure. And so I pushed that, but then that was the thing with when Dylan came out with that shoe, whenever we would go to spot and there was something big, he couldn't jump down it with those shoes. Sure. And we wore the same size shoes, so I'd always take the shoe off and go here, and he'd wear my shoes and he'd do the trick. But then it was like, okay, let's call the Filter High Dylan's other shoe. So it was like, then we could kind of market it, and he had these two.
Okay, interesting.
So but again, to go back to the designing of that shoe, at the time, that's when Stefan rode for was riding for Nike, and they were talking about a shoe, and Stefan really wanted to do a Volk, and they're not. And then we're in New York, and he caught that shoe, and he saw it, and he calls up Nike, and he went ballistic. Like, how the fuck does this 18-year-old kid have this? And da-da. And like, he went off, and he was talking to Sandy at the time, and Sandy's like, don't talk to me like this. He's like, no, fuck you. And Stefan's not that guy. He went ballistic.
Right.
So then they're like, okay, we're going to make this Volk shoe.
Yeah.
And again, that shoe came from him freaking out. And then,
He
Omar.
had to fight for that.
Yeah. Omar gets wind. And so Omar then goes, hey, Gravis is making me an offer, even though we never did. And then all of a sudden, boom, then he gets a shoe. You know, and it was like super funny. But that whole push all came off of Dylan's thing being completely different.
Hey,
you know?
Shout out to Stefan Janowski though.
Oh, yeah.
Because like to even stand up to a company like Nike and fight for what you want.
Yep.
Now he's got whole factories dedicated to making that. It's just his shoe.
Yep.
It's
and
insane.
again, and like even he'll say like, thank God for Dylan,
There you
but
go.
again, it's
full circle.
It was full circle,
Oh.
and then the same what happened at Gravis and Analog is they got a new president. The new president came in and was like, fuck skateboarders. We should only do snowboard shit. We're going to can this. We're going to can Analog. And literally, I was in Hawaii and I got the call. Yep, we're not going to do it anymore. And it was just like...
How long was the run for?
I think it was
Gravis and Analog.
Almost 5 years.
5 years?
And we had a 10-year plan. But again, we just started... Just like Vita was, we just started cracking. People just started digging what we were doing. We had Sammy Winter, we had Javier, we had Steve, and again, it just started going. And there was even a point where we started talking to Alex Alex Olsen, and he was, and then it was like, I can't do it.
But dude, that Gravis part that Dylan put out was like huge.
Well, that whole thing basically went down from when they were doing the Alien video and Greg, and then in the beginning of all that, he just killed it. He'd kill it at contests, he'd kill it getting footage, he'd kill it at everything. But
I think that video though really
towards the tail end though of the video of filming for the Alien video, he got really hooked on drugs, and he got really connected with pills, and he just started slipping. If you look at that video, you see his weight go down, his hair, he looks like he's strung out. And so, even that, I remember being with Dylan and being at my house, and I'm like, dude, your video part's gonna fucking suck. And he looks at me and he's like, what? I'm all, your video part's gonna fucking suck, and you're gonna fucking hate your life when you're sober and you realize this. And he's looking at me on my patio like, how can you fucking tell me this? And I was like holding back tears. But again, I knew what his ability was, and I saw what he was doing. And I'm just like, dude, you're watch. And sure enough, he's fucking at the video premiere. And again, he's fucking pilled out and he's watching the video, and then he gets so bummed that he walks out.
Wow.
And again, him walking out, half the team was like, you fucking prick. You fucking prick. How dare you? And so he had so much shit on his shoulders and so much shit on his back from that. And he got sober. That's where we put him in, and we're like, hey, we gave him an intervention, and we set him in an intervention and was like, hey, this is, you got to do this. You got it. And then he's like, I'm not going to go to rehab. I'm not going to do this. And I'm like, well, then you're going to be done. And then basically he goes, give me 1 week to try and do this on my own. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you 1 week. But I'm like, I know he's not going to do it. Everyone's like, he's not going to do it. Sure enough, he fucking did it. And he cleaned up and he got sober. And then he starts going off and he's ripping. And then that was kind of the point where I'm like, you know what? And at that time, there was no other single video parts. And I was like, you know what? We'll put a video out of you just on your own. Fucking kick ass. Do this video. So really, that was his, I'm going to prove to everyone that I deserve this shit. I'm going to prove to all the guys on Alien that I'm not a fucking pile of shit. And I'm going to fucking do this.
He did it tenfold.
And he fucking did it, you know? And from that point on, he fucking took everything so fucking serious. And he would go through realms of like, I'm going to go sober. He'd go sober. He'd film all this video stuff. He'd get everything he needed. Then he'd fucking okay, now I can party, now I can do my shit, and then boom, I'm gonna go sober, I'm gonna clean, and then that's where he produced so much shit after that with Cherry, and you know, getting covers and doing. It was just like, dude, and I mean, there was even a point where I'm like, dude, slow the fuck down, slow the fuck down. You're killing it too. Like, you need to chill, but you know, come now and realizing, oh, he was doing all this stuff to leave us with. All this stuff that again, you know, is
purpose behind it.
Oh, and again, and at the time, you know, when all that went down, and I remember he was in Berlin, and that's when he did the cover of the Backsmith in Berlin, and he came back from that trip, and he was just like, I'm fucking so tired. I have no energy. I feel fucking so weird. And I'm just like, I think you got mono. You probably got mono, you know, like you're all right. You know, whatever. And then he starts doing some blood work and he goes to the fucking doctor. And then, and then all of a sudden one day he calls and he's just like, I have leukemia. Dude. And I just remember being on the phone and like, literally like going like this, like, holy shit. But I had 2 friends that had leukemia and they made it. So I was just like, oh, you're going to fucking be fine. You know, you're going to fucking beat this shit. Like, don't worry about it. And, you know, but still like hang up the phone and lost it, you know, but and it was like, fuck. Okay. And then again, it was like, this is why everything happened. And again, he did everything that he needed to do. And again, it's like, I'll watch his stuff because I think of him every fucking day. So it's like, I'll watch his video parts or, you know, I'll look through the magazines and I'm just like, dude, you could play that right now. And
just that video part with the song and everything.
Yeah.
But it actually, I mean, he got a lung infection at the end. That's what. Yeah. He was in remission.
Yeah. So he was in remission. He fell out of remission, but then he basically beat the shit. But at that time his spine was really fucking jacked and had collapsed, and they had to do all these different surgeries. So he had a real hard time with walking and you know, moving. And again, he was so frail in his weight, you know. But I was like, okay, what's he gonna be? Is he gonna be a designer? Is he gonna be a singer? Is he gonna fucking make music? Like, because he was doing a lot of clothing design with our friend Jason Blake, who was also the head guy at Quicksilver at the time, and then he left and started his own brand, Ever, which is like the 4 leaves or 5 leaves that you'd always see Dylan wearing the Ever logo and like these dope leather jackets. So Jason Blake was really who inspired Dylan in design and doing clothing and making his own shit. And so then Jason did all the stuff for us for Analog. He did all the clothes for Analog. And again, he was like that mentor. So I'm like, all right, he's going to be a clothing designer. He could do whatever the fuck he wants.
Talented.
Yeah.
So then, you know, he was going through what he was going through. And then, you know, lost a lot of weight and had to get, you know, put on, and again, like I had to fucking be the one to be like, yo, dude, you got to put a feeding tube and, you know, gnarly shit you don't ever want to experience. But again, at the time I left working, I left everything to be with him during all that and spent all the days in the hospital with him and going there. And a buddy named Akram was always around and taking us, and his mom was there all the time. And at the time people were like, dude, well, fly to come here, go on a trip, because my friends were seeing how much it was killing me. But again, I'm like, I can't leave. There's no fucking way, you know. And at the time too, I was drinking, and I'd go home after being in the hospital and fucking just gug, like drink everything away. And then same at one point, I couldn't be strong enough for him. Like I'd see him like trying to get up, and I'd just start being behind him. I'd just start crying and being like, fuck. So at one point, he says something about drinking, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna quit. So I quit drinking cold turkey, quit. And then that was kind of like one of the last discussions we had. We were at Scott Oster's house in Ojai. He let us go and stay at his house, and it was super rad. And we were there, and we had this like surreal moment. Like both of us woke up really early, and we're sitting on this porch, and there's deer and all. I mean, it was magical. And I didn't realize that was going to be really our last conversation, deep one. And, you know, he was like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so fucking proud. In his face, I'm like, dude, I'll never drink again because of that face and that talk. But then, we got back. And then I remember that was the first time I actually left after. And I went to Hawaii because I had an art show. And then I heard he's not doing good. And then I came back, and that's when I knew he needed to be put on a feeding tube. So I was like, yo, you got to be put on the feeding tube. And he's like, and anyway, got that. And then he ended up getting a lung infection, and he couldn't fight it off. And but it was crazy because even that, he had such power and was like such a spiritual, like it was like magic, where it was like on a Friday and it was like he's not going to make it. And he basically hung on all the way until Sunday, till like everyone came, everyone from New York, everyone was there and everyone was around him. And you know, that was the time. And
crazy.
Yeah. And it was just like, holy shit. But he was surrounded by love and everyone was there, and he went from consciousness to unconsciousness. And you know, and even that was the craziest thing to witness, where how many people were in the hospital, how many people were sleeping in the fucking lobbies, everyone's bringing food, everyone was looking out. I mean, it was like, there was like over 100 people. Right. It was insane, again, of the amount of love and the amount of people that were there for him and supporting him, you know, like fuck Atiba. I mean, such a big player. Like, I was just shocked on the way of him, like coming in from a fucking job, getting in his car, driving to see Dylan, being with Dylan, coming home, taking a shower, going back. Like, I mean, and it was just like, I always knew Atiba and had a friendship, but I was like, dude, you're the fucking raddest, you know, like I fucking love you. And, you know, it was crazy, but you know, everything happens for a reason. And, you know, now he's above and looking down with us. And it's like,
he definitely left an impact.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
On skateboarding, which is,
yeah.
It's not easy to do.
No.
So yeah, man, rest in peace, bro.
Yeah, definitely
miss that dude. But you know, I mean, he was loved by so many people.
Yeah, yeah. And again, even that, and you know, for me, part of the way that I was able to get past, because I mean, I was fucking devastated. It fucked me up, because Dylan was with me since he was like 12 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was with him his whole career. And again, it was like I lost my best friend. It was like I lost my son. Yeah. And you know, so for me was posting photos and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd cry my ass off, cry. And then I'd feel him like, motherfucker, quit crying. That's enough. And then, you know, and then I'd post photos, and then the amount of people that would send me DMs or messages. And again, like, him being a mentor of like, I was able to do this because Dylan did it, or like there were so many kids that had cancer that made it because of him. I had kids calling me and saying, you know, I was refusing chemo and I wasn't going to do this and all that, but Dylan made me and I'm still alive. I mean, and it was just story after story. And for me, it helped me and it raised me up and was like, okay, he didn't go through all this for nothing. He went through this to help all these other people. You know, even like in a little while ago, there was a kid named Easton Nash, and he hit me up, and he was this kid from Midwest, and he was living in Palm Springs, and super ripping skater, gnarly pool skater. He was one of the like locals at the Nude Bowl, but this kid had hit me up and was just like, I have a brain tumor. And so all of a sudden I meet with him, because that was kind of like my other thing where I started doing was like, I started going to see cancer kids. I'd go to kids in the hospital. I'd write to kids, anything. If I got hit up, I was there. And that was kind of like a crazy thing for me, but it was like, this is what I need to do. Yeah. And if I can bring comfort to the mom in the room or the sister or whatever, that's what I'm going to do. And again, it just made me feel so much purpose and light. And, you know, Easton came in and I met Easton, and then, you know, he had the brain tumor, and then the brain tumor goes down, and then all of a sudden it's like it's back again. And then crazy, like Thebo knew him, and like Thebo was a big help. And so again, he basically knew he was going to pass, and he basically kind of fell into the Buddhist philosophy. And I mean, this kid was amazing. And the thing he wrote, if you looked on his Instagram and all this stuff, and it was just like, oh my God, this guy is so much power. And then he ended up passing, and you know, the guys at Antihero made him a board, where I'm like, okay, this guy's got a board with Antihero. Like, that's how impactful he was. But again, it's like the stories like that of so many different people that again that struggled, or like how many girls are like, you know, I'd have husbands calling me and say, my wife died, and you know, I saw the way you are and how you mourn with Dylan, and you know, and then again, I'm helping this guy or another guy. My 2-year-old daughter died, you know, and I'm just sitting here like crying, like fuck, you know. But I'm like, okay, how do I get the strength? And then, it's just talk and being real and
right.
And again, being thankful. And again, and weirdly enough for me, it was like, I experienced so much craziness in my life, and I experienced a lot of death. Dylan, Mike, my fiance when I was 25 killed herself.
Wow.
But a lot of crazy shit. And I was able to kind of find peace and get through this again with fucking helping people and really like getting out of that comfort zone and going, all right, like I have to do this. And again, it's like it gives me that power, and that like, how do I talk to these? Because I don't know, and I just like take a breath and speak from the heart, and
you just
but again, it's every day with him, which is crazy. Because again, for me, I'm like, dude, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him or I don't hear him or see an impact. And that's the thing for me, seeing skateboarders that are dressing like him, and I'm like fucking stoked. Yeah. And again, like I hear randomness of people talking shit on certain things, but I'm like, man, we all wanted to look like Hosoi. We all wanted to look like Natas. We all dress like Lance Mountain. So again, in these things, I'm like, I'm stoked to go down the street and see the impact that he has, and again see guys' styles, and again people trying to mimic what he's doing, because again, like that's what you do with the greats, and
dude, for sure.
But again,
I love that you help people and answer DMs or write people, or I mean, there is something very powerful about helping somebody.
Oh yeah, and it's like again, it's been my biggest purpose, and again, it's been the raddest thing, because again, it's like, and to kind of go back where I was sitting there and again going through like, why is all this shit happening to me? Why is all this shit happening to me? I'm a good guy. I don't understand. Like, should I be fucked? Like da. And for some reason, I started watching YouTube clips of the Dalai Lama, and I just started watching them all the time. I'd be at dinner watching, and then he said basically at one point, he goes, pain and suffering cause human compassion. And that kind of just hit me and was like, holy shit, I had to go through all this to realize and be able to sit there and go, I can relate to every single one of you people, and again, I can get the power to go, all the shit that happened to me made me stronger, and it made me a better person, and it made me more aware. Because before I was into my own life. I was into wearing the hood and kind of hiding out, and like, if you weren't in my little circle, it was like you weren't really there.
I think we all live like that to a certain degree.
But and that was the thing for me, is like I had to realize that I have to love everybody. And I mean, that's why I've loved more, like PMA, like all this stuff. It's a constant thing for me. But that was the point of like, shit, if everyone loved more and everyone looked out for each other and everyone fucking lent a hand, and that's why again I'll do things on my Instagram, talk about suicide, and again, like I struggle, and it's like alcohol, being an alcoholic. When it's in you, it's in you. So again, I was suicidal, but thank God for Anne, and she saved me, because I saw what it did to my family and her family and our friends, and I was just like, fuck, no matter what, how fucked my life is, I can't cause that pain to the people that I love.
Sure.
And so that's what saved me. And again, like I still struggle. And then once this pandemic hit, I started hearing from friends that their kids were going through this, or because of social media and all this stuff. And so again, I'm like, fuck, I'll say something. And I made a post probably 8 months ago talking about it. And then all of a sudden, again, pouring in of DMs, pouring in of people. Yeah. And then again, just a few nights or a week ago or something like that, again, I had a good friend of mine that lives in Bali, and she's married, and her husband's a skater, and he's super rad, but he's just the uplift guy, and she has the darkness in her, and she's just like struggling. She's like, he doesn't understand. I'm like, yeah, because people that don't have it, they don't understand. Because again, it's like, why would you want to do it?
It's hard to.
It's so hard to fathom.
Something.
But when you're in that state of how bad you can make yourself feel, or how worthless you can make yourself feel. So again, just the other night, I was just like, I had a shitty day. And again, those are the things that pop up. But luckily, because of therapy and everything that I learned how to deal with the signs that are coming on, and again, to not bury myself. But again, when she told me, I feel so alone, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to make another video. And I just did another one. And again, the amount of people that reach out to me, and again, like 2 days ago, another kid, like, I'm going through the same thing, and I saw your thing and about talking about therapists. I'm like, yep, this is how you got to do it. It's like a girlfriend, and you got to go through it, and it takes time, but it's got to start with you. Like for me, I was at that point where I was like, because it was like after Ann died, after Mike died, and I was at World, and I was just like, I fucking hate my life, and I just was a quick, and then it was like, I want to die, and like, it was like, I wish I could die, and I'm like, okay, this is no way to live.
Right.
So I'm like, what else do I have to do? Like,
Yeah.
fuck it. I'm going to start trying to go to therapy. And then again, it was like, this guy sucks. This guy's judging me. That guy's whack, like that. And then finally I found a lady and boom, hit it. And she saved.
How do you go about finding like the right therapist? 'Cause
Well,
I don't know. Like that's
yeah.
like seems like a tough thing. I don't know anything about it.
It is,
Yeah.
and again for me, it was like, and I put it a lot to like finding a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You got to go on dates, and so again, I would go and I had medical insurance, and so with your medical insurance, you have like, I think they give you like 2 weeks or something with therapy, which again, the medical's fucked. They don't give you the support that you need. So with that, I was going through the realms. And again, a lot of the people that I would sit across the table were people that had no fucking care or like, you know, you're a drug addict or you're this. And I'm just like, nope. But it's also was the process of like, I was doing something. And then again, it was like, I went through a few different people. And then finally I luckily went to this lady, and she randomly was like a substitute because the lady that was supposed to be there was pregnant, and I hit it off with this lady. And then, you know, I had the 2 weeks of what it was, and then I was like, you're my lady. And again, it was admitting, and that was like the crazy thing, but it was like admitting and going back. And then that was like the thing of like her coming and again, I think having the complex mind as an artist and as a skater and all this. She's like, did you set goals? And I'm like, yeah. And then she's all, do you remember what your goals were? And I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, well, did you make them? And I was like, and I looked back, and I never looked back before, and I fucking made every goal that I ever set.
There you go.
And so again, for me, I was the guy that because what happened when I was a kid, my mom and my dad and my brother are all book smart. They're all book smart, college, like, and I was the only artist, and I wasn't that way, and I had ADD, and I had attention problems, and so as a small kid, I was at school, and I was wild, and they basically were like, oh, your son's retarded. And you hear this, I was in 3rd grade. You hear this, and you're like, what? And so they're like, you got to put him in testing, and like all this stuff, and it was like, you know, and I'm hearing this as a kid, and that's when I first thoughts in my head of like, I want to kill myself. 3rd grade.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And so again, my parents took me to go see these people, and I did all the testing. At the time I was in 3rd grade, and they're like, your son could be at a 6th grade level. So my parents were like, fuck that school, right? Like, we're going to put you in this school.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't have the art outlets. I should have been put in music class, or I should have been in drawing, or I should have, and that wasn't known. So again, I was still in that, and it wasn't until skateboarding where all of a sudden I'm with Natas, or I'm with these, and I'm like wanting to draw, wanting to shoot photos. And then again, like I'm in a private school, and I have a photo in Thrasher Magazine, but they won't let me in photography because they're like, oh, he's wild, and no, can't be it, you know? And so all these things, and again, from my school, and they just this shit. And then for me, I just put all this stuff in my own head.
Yeah.
I built myself, and my parents are like, I can't. I'm like, had nothing to do with you. It was all me. But that was the thing of like being that powerful mind and being a kid, and again, feeling like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't this, or I wasn't that, or my brother was like super good looking dude, and every girl I'd ever liked, they would want to be with him. And I'm like, this sucks. And so I built all this crap, and I put all this pressure on me and myself. And then again, like I was a cutter, and that's where it was like people didn't understand that. But I'm like, the pain I'm feeling inside of my heart and inside my head, to cut myself and feel that, it gets my head off it, and it gives me that comfort. But again, it was like going to this lady and her having me, and it was like the most basic stuff, like, oh shit, if I only flipped that over, I would have saw it.
Yeah.
But it was so complex in my own head, and I literally had to unlearn all the shit that I put in.
Right.
And I caused myself to do. And so again, I had to go through all those things and realize, fuck, you are this and you are that. And then that was the big thing for me, was because I'm still that way. And I think a lot of skaters have that same thing, where it's like everything I did, I never thought it was good enough.
Right.
I suck. That's where too, I stopped surfing. I'm like, why'd you stop surfing, really? Why'd you stop skating? Well, like, because I was comparing myself, and I'm like, I suck. I'm not going to be pro. I'm not going to have that. I don't want to do this. I don't want.
For sure.
And I put all that on. And then kind of going through all that and then realizing, holy shit, like I fucking did all this. And then again, like I made every goal that I ever fucking tried to do. And again, then the therapist was like, okay, you surround yourself with these people. Do you trust them? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, do you think they're good? I'm like, yeah. Well, what do they say about you? And again, Dylan was one of my big pillars. And I'm like, okay, if Dylan thinks my art's cool, then it must be cool. You know, and that's where, again, I started doing all the grip tape. So all the grip tape that Dylan was writing was my art.
Yeah.
And so, again, I started doing that. And then it was like, okay, don't you judge yourself. But if all these people around you are thinking that, then it's okay.
Sure.
And so that was kind of like the gauges of like, holy shit, like, okay. And again, still this day, I'm like, oh, this sucks. I hate that. And then, you know, wow, this is so insane. And I'm like, all right, well, then I guess it's okay. But I can accept it and leave it. Because again, that's also what drives me is to keep going. Or again, I taught myself photography, or I taught myself shoe design. I taught myself clothing design. I learned how to start sewing, you know, or even now it's like during the pandemic, I'm like, oh, what could I do? Like I've done block prints and I've done all this shit. And like, how is Ruka going to want me as an artist there and sponsor me if I'm not coming up with these creative ideas? So during the pandemic, I started sewing patches. And I started doing these hand-done patches. But it would be like, these patches would take me like 3 days, 4 days. And I'm like, okay, this thing took 4 days. How am I gonna? And then
am I gonna make 4,000?
Yeah, again, or how am I gonna put a value on that?
Yeah,
you know. So then all of a sudden, you know, Hiroshi from Japan becomes a good friend, and I meet one of his friends that does some sewing, and then he's like, you should start chain stitching. You should get a chain stitch. And I'm like, what the fuck's a chain stitch? You know, and all of a sudden I started looking into it. And during the pandemic, I'm doing the patches. And then that's kind of like my Ruka line right now. And what came out cool with it was, so I ended up making all these handmade patches. And then I took the handmade patches and sent them to China. Rather than sending them an art file, I sent them the physical, actual patch.
Okay.
Then they took the patch and they made the stuff that's on my clothing that's on the line now, and they reproduced it, but it gave it a completely different look than what you would have done if you gave them a patch through a graphic design.
Yeah.
So then that kind of spawned, and that was like all of a sudden, because the pandemic, they were cutting riders and all this stuff. And then I luckily, because of putting my head down and going, I'm just going to try and figure this out, it hit. And then it worked. And then all of a sudden, so I'm like, okay, but then I'm like, how do I speed this up? So then again, then it came into start chain stitching. So then I go look into it. I buy a machine. And at the time, you know, I've been with Stance from the very beginning, which is another rad gift, but they had to cut and everyone's making cuts. So again, during the pandemic, I went from being able to live all right to all of a sudden, like, now I'm making nothing. Holy shit, what do I do? So I decide I'm going to go buy a chain stitch machine, which they're like $3 or $4 grand. I get this machine. Okay. I get home, and I can't even work it. I have no idea. And I'm like, and then I just start crying, like, what did I do?
Better jump on YouTube and find out how to do it.
That's exactly it. I start going on YouTube and I start trying to look and seeing what they're doing. And then again, I realized that the threading was wrong. And then I start to figure the machine out, and I'm like doing it, and I'm like, this stuff all looks crazy, because the crazy part of it is the machine is like a normal sewing machine, but underneath you have a handle, and the handle spins like a clock, and that's what spins the needle 360. And then the top hand is a guide, but your foot is on basically the gas.
Okay.
So you're drawing and doing like this. So it's like an ecta sketch.
So when you're turning the wheel, it's turning. What's it?
It's turning the direction of whichever way the needle's going to go. Your thread line's going to go.
Okay, so if you want to go left, you turn it left, and then now we're going this way, and now you're maneuvering the patch.
Yeah, maneuvering the patch as your guide and your foot. And so again, I'm like trying to figure all this stuff out, right?
I mean, I could barely pat my stomach and rub my head.
And again, it's one of those things, and again, I'm going through this, and I'm like, fuck, you know, and trying to figure it out, and then again, going back to skateboarding, which saved my life so many fucking times, I start looking on Instagram and I start seeing chain stitchers, you know, and there's this whole group of guys in LA, and they're all like, you know, Latinos, and it's like, you see their style and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden I see these two guys, Just Chill Bill and another guy, Dirty Needle. And I look on their things and they're skaters.
Amazing.
And they follow me.
Wow.
There it is.
So I'm like, wait a minute, like, okay. So then I reach out to these guys, and then they're like, yeah, Oblow, Mark, we know. And the camaraderie because of skateboarding breaks all those walls down, and like, hey, this is like, boom. And all of a sudden I start getting some tips. And then one of the guys, Bill, ends up selling me one of his machines, and boom. And then it's like, all of a sudden I'm in. And I have the help of two of the best guys that were, again, my favorite. And again, the Dirty Needle, he used to ride for God, I can't even remember, but he rode for a company, and he was super close with, God, he was one of the, and I'm blanking, but he was always with Ed.
Templeton? Ethan Fowler?
Ethan Fowler.
Okay.
He rode with Ethan Fowler.
Oh, sick.
Grew up with Ethan Fowler, and still skates. And then Bill, Bill did like a board with Baker, and like just crazy. But again, that thing, and then again that love of like the respect from skateboarders, and that thing of like, yeah, here's the thing, like, and the guidance. And then again, like anytime, like I just did this patch, and I posted it up, and Bill's like killing it, and again I'm like, thank you. Like you're my hero in that world. And for you to acknowledge that, that's all I care about. And again, it's like the whole thing with skaters and again, and how that works. And again, the talent that we have and that we possess. And again, the camaraderie of being like, yo, dude, here, like, I'm going to help you with this. Where other people are like, fuck you. I'm not going to show you my secrets. It's like how to mix the paint or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, even to come back to photography, and a lot of those first photos of during this time, Kevin Thatcher let me sit on his shoulder and shoot right behind him and kind of tutored me. Bryce Knights was a huge help and a huge tutor where it's like, yo, you're scared. Here. Where again, I didn't have the college. I didn't have the schooling. I didn't have this stuff. I had the guys that I skated with and they respected. And again, they pushed me into these fields.
Totally.
And
you had the curiosity, and you had these people that were like really like the bosses that what they were doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. And even Hirosh, who again was like, oh, this is do this, get this, because he knew. And again, it was just like,
Amazing.
Respect, respect.
Definitely.
Can you make us some 9 club ones?
Yep,
All right.
for sure.
We're gonna need 4,000 of them by the end of the week.
Now, and that's the thing. Now I've been doing it for a little over a year, probably 2 years now, and I'm fast. I can do it now, and it's like
So we could expect them at the end of the week.
End of the week, done.
Well, how long did like
amazing.
making something like that?
Yeah.
How long does that?
I mean,
take?
this is
that one took probably like 3 hours.
Okay.
that's it.
Damn.
Yeah, because
This
again,
is
I sit down and I crank, and then I have 2 machines. So it's like one I'll have set up as my line, and one I'll do as my fill. And then there's like if you look on here, there's and for me, I was always into gang jackets, and again, like the Warriors, and again, really into like motorcycle culture and all that stuff. So, and then also it's collegiate. So again, like all the Letterman jackets and stuff. So chenille is when it's furry, and then the other one is basically the normal, the chain stitch. So I have 2 machines, one set up for chenille, one set up for the outline, and then I work between it. But then that's also the thing before where I was just freehanding it. And then all of a sudden I was like drawing on a material, but then I started getting more and looking, and it's like a tattoo where you guys, they'll make a flash. So you make the flash on paper, and then you put the paper down and you do the outline, and then you rip the paper off, and then you do the fills. So again, learning of like, oh, I can.
Does it leave it on there?
No, it rips right out. So again, it's like I just I'll draw my stuff on my iPad, or I'll draw my stuff in the computer, and then I'll print it out on just a straight up piece of paper.
Okay.
And then I'll put the piece of paper down, and I just do the outline. And then you do the outline and then rip the paper off.
And then you rip it out. Oh,
and then fill it.
And then you fill it.
Or you can go over the paper because it goes
Seems
right
like,
over
why
it.
don't we just draw what you want to do on a fabric and then go?
Well, because it's also, when you're doing it, it's like to draw with a pen or drawing at something. It's like, I can't, you want to fix it. Same thing with the tattoo. You guys draw the tattoo flash. They'll put that on you.
Right.
They'll make sure it's right.
Yeah.
And then they draw it.
Yeah.
So it's the exact same as that. So that's also the style of it is a lot like tattooing, where again, you have guys that do it that have that different look, and it's like a tattoo style. And then each guy's got his technique, and then you have to learn on how to lay the thread, because that was my other point of like, I was just and everything was just like on top of each other, where it's like, no, there's a system of when you're doing it, you kind of do a circular motion like an 8, and then that covers up, and then you go around it, but you have to be aware of the way your threads, and that's where again you have to put the time in, just like tattooing, and then you do it. Where for me, during the pandemic, I mean, I was doing it for like 8 hours a day, just sitting on the machine like,
that's when you had some time.
Yeah,
look at that. It's a little fuzzy.
A lot of details, for sure.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for this, bro. We're gonna keep this.
No,
right
for
here,
sure.
bro.
For sure.
How did the photography then turn into, taking photos of all these like celebrities, like Beckham, Lil Wayne, Katy Perry? Like how does one get gigs like that?
Well,
just knowing people or what?
Yeah, well, for me, I started to do a lot of stuff with Quicksilver. And then that was kind of like where I started to do more lifestyle and fashion shit.
Okay.
At first, I was doing all video stuff for them. So I was shooting video and doing like Super 8 videos and making these videos. And I was working with some really high-end photographers. And I was watching them, and I was watching their attitudes and how fucking pompous they were and how arrogant they were. And again, how they treated their assistants like fucking shit. And they would make the models fucking cry. And it was just like, you guys are fucking lame.
Sounds horrible.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really horrible. It was honestly, it was a kind of a smack in the face in a sense. So I started to shoot more, and then I kind of was transitioning from doing the videos, and I started doing photo stuff. And then I started where there was actually a trip where I was with Quicksilver, and they're like, hey, we want you to go to New York and do a photo shoot with Nathan Fletcher and Jason Dill. And at the time, I was fucking panicked because I knew Nathan, and I knew of him. I met him again back in Hawaii through Christian, because Christian Fletcher was skating, Nathan skated, and they were friends with Hosoi. So I met him there, and I was just kind of like, holy shit, how am I going to fucking do this? And then I had to have the clothes, I had to shoot them, I had to style it, I had to do everything, right? And so I was panicking, like, holy shit, I'm going to New York to do this, and I don't even know him, da-da-da. And I remember, like, I got on the plane, and I was like, God, I hope Nathan doesn't come. I hope he doesn't show up. I was so scared. And he shows up, and we fucking hit it off. Like, again, it was just like the raddest. He was the raddest, and we both smoked weed. We both were into coffee. I mean, it was amazing. So I got really lucky with that. And then at that time, Jason was in his New York thing, and he was into, he wanted a fucking billboard. He wanted that kind of stuff. So he was obviously, and that's when he had his great hair. So I started, and I went with them, and we ran around New York, and I shot some stuff. And then we got back, and then they get the photos, and next thing you know, I got the back cover of Spin magazine.
Wow.
From that shoot. And so then they're like, we won. And they just started pushing me. Quicksilver started pushing me more, and I started doing more of their fashion stuff and more of that. And then there was a hurricane one time when we were in New York, and they had a fashion show, and this big hurricane hits. And then the hurricane hit, and some of the surfers were there, and they had their boards because they were surfing in Jersey. And so we're staying at the Soho Grand, and there's like knee-deep water out front. It was flooding, and it was gnarly. And so I just got this idea like, hey, Strider, get your surfboard. Let's go in the middle of New York, the city, and I want to take a photo with you in the board, in the water. Okay. Right? So he's just like, yeah, for sure. And another guy, Chris Wan, who's a bodyboarder, gnarly guy, he's there, and he comes out, and I, had them help me like with an umbrella, and like we go out in the street, and I shoot these photos, in black and white photos of Strider in this knee-deep water holding the board with only trunks. And I mean, it was insane. And then I remember like all the guys from the hotel, like the front desk or the bellman guys, they're just like, dude, you need to fucking get a hepatitis shot, man. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And they're like, that's shit water. And I'm like, what? And I look, and all of a sudden I look in the water, and literally there's shit. There's all this stuff. So I'm like freaked out. So again, I go and I get a hepatitis shot. And then
I'll take that advice.
I'm like, I'll take that. And then that photo ends up getting in another magazine, the back cover of something.
But who's submitting these to the magazines?
The Quicksilver people are. But again, they're buying ads, but they were in pretty big time magazines, big publications. So then I continued on shooting, and then I was shooting all the stuff with Analog and Gravis. And, again, had Dylan and I had a really good looking team. So it was like a real easy thing. And then again, it was just shooting the way we shoot. So then at the time I got approached by an agency called Happy Lucky that was in Portland, and they were doing a lot of Adidas stuff. And so they came to me and they're like, we need a skateboarder photographer. We like the way you guys shoot. And I'm like, huh? Like what? Okay. And so at first they were talking to Humphreys and me. Okay. And then there was some conflict with him because of Nike. So then they're like, and so I'm like, hey, what about Ryan Allen? So Ryan Allen and I started, and we started shooting this stuff. And there was a division called Neo that was a division of Adidas, and it was basically like music and singers and all this stuff, but it was like, like it was the brother of Miley Cyrus. It was like kind of like not known people, but they were known somehow. So then we ended up shooting that, and then they liked what we did, and then so they just started to use us more. And then, they're telling me you're we only use people for 2 years and that's it. And you're going to get maxed and whatever. But they liked what we did. So then all of a sudden, they said, we want you to do a David Beckham shoot. Right. And so it was him at the soccer field, and they, like all this stuff. So it was just like, holy shit, David Beckham. And I'm stoked because I knew who he was, but I was more stoked because it's like, you work the least amount of time, like 2 hours, and you get paid the most money you ever made in your life.
Perfect. Sounds great.
But so again, I go, and that one was just me, and I go and at the time they were doing this it was like the biggest spot that they ever did, and they hired this crazy director that did like Justice League commercial, the videos, the kids they're smashing the French kids, and they're smashing all the running down the street in leather jackets. So this director was badass, but he was like going through he actually also did that, the Bad Girl video for, what's her name? What's that? Bad Girl, and it was the cars, and they're driving in the cars, and the cars are like going on the sides. It was filmed in like the Middle East or something.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, so they're doing this commercial. They have the thing where they needed Beckham, so I went and I shot Beckham, and then they had me do, like, there was a couple bands that they did, a couple gymnasts, and then I did that, and then from that point they were stoked on what I did, and then I kind of got in with David Beckham, ended up liking me. So then I did another shoot with David Beckham, and then I started doing, and I did the Katy Perry shoot. And then it just kind of started to snowball because it's also like what I found out in LA, when you start shooting celebrities, then you're kind of in as a celebrity photographer. Okay. So then they know that you're not going to kook out or fan out and do these things. So then it just kind of started rolling. And then, then because of Supra and Miguel and all that stuff with Lit, they said, oh, let's have you do Lil Wayne. And then I did Lil Wayne, and then I had done a Snoop shoot with Adidas, and then they did another Snoop shoot. I did another one with him, and then they asked me to do the Gonz and Snoop shoot, and then it just kind of it all started to roll, And
let me ask you a question: when you're saying like, oh, we did a Katy Perry shoot, we did a Snoop shoot, we did a Lil Wayne shoot, what goes into that? Are you just showing up at a studio with a white backdrop, a seamless thing, or are you setting up some type of like, oh, we're gonna do Lil Wayne over here, and we're gonna like, what goes on?
Yeah, so they vary. So like the first time I shot Beckham, he was on a soccer field. Okay, and then when I shot Katy Perry, she was in this really crazy building downtown LA. And then, you know, her dancers are there and they're doing choreography. So like that was like, and again, I'd have a lighting guys and I had like a team with me that would do all that, where all I did was shoot. I had
But
a
who's
digital
thinking
tech
about
guy.
all this stuff?
They
Who's
have
like, oh, we're gonna shoot them on the field.
The agency.
There's already treatments for this.
They're setting up the shots.
So they set up where they want, and then you go in and you have meetings. So it's
Okay.
like a couple creative meetings that you have to go to, and you sit there and they're like, this is what we're thinking, and then what would you do here? And then it's kind of like we get to the set, and then they're always like, you do your thing.
Gotcha.
So again, it was like, you know, with Katy Perry, it was her dancing. I did some Justin Bieber shoot was fucking hilarious because it was right when he started smoking weed.
Okay.
And so he comes on and he's just like vibing me, you know, and I'm just like, I walk in and they're like, okay, we want you to come and meet him, you know, and I'm like, all right, whatever. So I walk in the room and he's literally in the mirror, looking at himself in the mirror. And then I'm like, they're like, hey, this is Mark Oblow. He's the photographer and da-da. And he's just looking in the mirror and then he turns to me and he goes, just don't tell me what to fucking do. And I was like, cool. And I just turned around and walked out.
Okay.
Right? I was like, fuck that. Like I walked out. Wow. And then I'm sitting there and, you know, whatever. And then so we start doing the first shoot and we're doing the first shot. And this was in a studio.
Okay.
So we're doing the shoot. And then, you know, he goes by he goes by the monitor and he's looking at the photos and he just goes, you're a natural. And I'm like thinking, little kid, man, who the fuck are you? And then he goes downstairs and he had this crazy tricked out van. Okay. And he goes downstairs and he smokes weed. Uh-huh. And then he comes up and he's stoned as fuck. And then they're like trying to do the video, right? And then he can't speak because he's stoned. And then he gets super pissed and throws the fucking shoe. And I mean, it was just like, whoa, man, what's going on? But again, for me, just and that's like the whole thing with me with the celebrity shots was I don't care. And again, I grew up with Kelly Slater and Shane Horan, and I grew up with Natas, and I grew up with Gonz and Tony Hawk and Lance. So for me, none of these people, I didn't care about any of them.
Yeah.
And so again, they feel that and they sense that, and so again, they kind of have a different respect because again, you go on set and people are fucking sucking dick. It's so like, and again, you realize how these people get these heads because people are just throwing everything at them and just and it's like, okay, like you don't like me? Fuck you. I don't give a shit. But again, then he didn't react. Respect, you know. And then it was fucking easy. And then all of a sudden we start talking about Stance socks. Because he had Stance on and I did. And the lady's like, oh, you know, the producer's like, Mark's on Stance. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I've been with them from the beginning. I knew Ryan Kingman, who was one of the founders, and they put me on. I'm an artist. They call it Punks and Poets. And so, again, I was one of the, and then that dialogue comes and then that thing and that connection comes. And it's like, oh, you designed sock. Like, yeah, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so it's, again, you know, for me, everything I have in my life is from skating. And all my confidence, all my friends, everything I've learned, all my powers. And again, like I don't care. I grew up in the skate world when we grew up, and again, it's a lot different now where a lot of the skaters are into sports and they're into like basketball where when it was my generation in the 80s, we weren't looking at anything else but skating. And again, even then, surfing and skating didn't even combine. It was a fuck you, you're a surfer, fuck you, you're a skater. And it only became later once, you know, in the 90s that stuff started going because then people were starting to do both. Yeah. And again, it actually enhanced both sports and made them better because like Dylan Rieder, his father was a surfer. He started surfing. He had that. Boom, he looks good on a skateboard. Right. You know, or vice versa. You have John Florence and the brothers. They're all skating with Nathan Fletcher. Boom, they do airs. They have that. Boom, now you have that power. Sure. So again, it's changed a lot. But again, for me, in that whole world where again, it's like, you know, yeah, of course, when I shot Snoop, of course, I'm stoked it's Snoop Dogg. You know, that's like respect out of respect. But even with Snoop, he was on point. He's cool. He gets it. He's like, and you're like, dude, you are a fucking pro. Same thing.
Did he go get stoned?
Oh yeah. This is the Brad Snoop story. So Snoop's on set, and he's smoking a joint, and then all of a sudden he's like, someone take this, and he's holding it out, and I'm shooting. He's all, yo, someone take this. And I'm like, I grab the joint.
Yeah.
Take some hits, right? Because I'm like, fuck, no one's taking it. So then I hand it to my assistant, Taylor.
Yeah.
He takes some hits. And then I'm all, Taylor, save that joint.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm like, I want to save that joint. I
Yeah.
still have that. I still to this
that.
day have that. So then then he sees like, oh, okay, cool, this dude smokes weed, right? So then the second time I shot with him, or I think it was like the third time, is when I did the Gon shoot. And him and Gons fully knew each other. They had a good morale. They were like so rad together. And so he does it again. Yo, someone take this. And so again, I take the joint, right? And then there was a guy that was working with the art department from the creative side, and he was like, you're gonna get in trouble, you shouldn't do this, and da-da-da. And then all of a sudden one of Snoop guys is like, yo, what the fuck are you saying? And he's all, he shouldn't be smoking, he's done it. And he goes, yo, man, you better not let Snoop hear you say that. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, that happened before, and Snoop kicked off all the people that said no. So it was just like, fuck yeah, and
That was the homie that came
yeah,
in.
and so again, I was just like, respect, but yeah, I mean, and again, I still have those too, where it's like every time I'm like saving all that stuff, like, oh my God.
When Lil Wayne was here, we still have his blunt little things.
Yeah,
like the
so that covered
roaches.
somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, he was nonstop. Yeah, he definitely was another one that loved it, his weed.
Yeah, it's rad. I mean, with the celebrity thing, I mean, listen, Justin Bieber saying, don't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine being them.
Oh, yeah.
And having just another photographer coming in to tell them blah, 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 make them pose in some stupid fucking pose.
And telling them stupid shit.
But
again,
you didn't even check the degree yet.
Yeah.
No.
I went right for the throat.
No, right?
But again, I think that's the whole difference of, and being a skater.
Yeah.
And we have a different thing where, again, I'm not asking the same shit that and again, that's what these guys are. Same thing of why David ended up liking me and a lot of that other stuff happened because people, they see that and they know that. And again, we have a different confidence. We have a different look, and we do different stuff where it's not like, jump, like, and you see these things and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? But again, half the time you people get so fanned out, and they truly do. And again, these celebrities have, David's flying in on a private jet. He's getting, and again, the Pampers, like it's insane. These guys are making shitloads of money. They're going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. So it's just like when you go to a demo and you're like, someone's trying to ask you to do, and it's like, dude, don't tell me what to fucking do.
Yeah.
It's how many times I've been asked for my hat.
Yeah, how many times, Kareem, don't fucking tell me what to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's that same mindset, but again, it's
on a different level, though.
Yeah, it's taking
100%.
It's taking that, and again, like, being from where I am and being from Hawaii, and it's like, man, you have an attitude, you're getting your ass kicked. And again, like, even from being in that world of skating and being in that world of surfing, it's like people are, for the most part, are pretty fucking humble. When guys are arrogant, they get their fucking arrogant asses slapped. You know what I mean? So it's like that mindset. But again, it was a really key tool for me with shooting that and doing that. And then, the career goes on. I ended up getting an agent in New York, and that kind of just crushed me and crushed what I was doing, because again, then all of a sudden, where before I was representing everything myself, I got all that work by myself. I did all that work, and then all of a sudden I have an agent, and they're fucking doing this and that and telling that, and it just, to the point where I was like, okay, I'm done.
That's it.
I don't need to do this anymore, because that's where I got the jump thing, where it's like, tell them to jump. And it was like, it seemed like every photo shoot I do, they would ask the person, like, tell them to jump, tell me. And it's just like, okay, I can't. Why do you have me then?
Right.
Like, I don't want to do this. And and that was the thing. I was just like,
tell them to jump.
To me, it's like, I don't know. Like,
but these are the goofball things that they want.
Yeah, because they don't know any better. Right. And again, like,
him jumping in the action is going to be great.
Yeah, it'll be so cool. And it's just like, he don't want to fucking jump. No, like, come on,
Beckham,
just like Lil Wayne is. They wanted him to sit in this weird chair, and he's like, I don't want to. And again, I see the chair at first. I'm like, what the hell is that? And he's like, why do I have this chair? And he's like, there's no strippers here? Where's the strippers? Like this, I got this chair, no strippers. Like, fuck this. And again, I'm like, like, what are you doing? He wanted to be at the park. So like we were shooting at Supra, and then he's hearing all the skaters, and he's like, fuck it, I'm going to the park later. And he just walked off the set, goes to the park and starts skating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, guys, what do you want me to do now? You know, and it's just like, I'm not telling Lil Wayne to come back in here.
Yeah.
You know, and again, he wanted to skate.
Lil Wayne, can you come back in here and jump?
Yeah.
Real quick.
Trying to get
Can
this
you
photo.
can you sit on this chair? You know, and it. I mean,
I could see how. Oof,
Yeah.
Just that's disgusting.
Yeah. And you know, but for me, it was a really cool thing. And again, like having goals, you know, and it was one of those goals of like, I want to get in this and I want to do this. And I did it. But that was the whole point of like, okay, I went there, I did it. I was successful at it. I made good money. I shot the top of all that. But it wasn't me. Yeah. And again, it was like I was doing things for money only. And that was another thing of like my therapy and going through that for me was, well, if I make this much money, then I'm okay. If I make this much money, I'm successful. If I make this much money, then I can.
But there's no finish line to that.
Well, but there's none. And then also it was like, okay, I have a studio. I have 5 motorcycles. I have a fucking hot rod. I have a fucking car. I had all this fucking shit. And it was like, it wasn't until Dylan got sick and being with him and spending time and again, like saying, I'm not going to work and fuck all the shit. And then again, you start feeling the pressure of when you have all this shit and then you start losing it. But again, it's like, I'm not going to leave with any of this shit. And this doesn't make me who I am. And this doesn't make me stoked. So it was just like, I'm done, you know? And again, I walked away and then that was the same thing with Analog and Gravis, where I was like, I'm not going to lead my guys into this world and have them do this shit for some fucking president to switch and can the deal. So again, I'm not going to take a corporate job. And I mean, I walked away from huge money, but I was like, I'm not stoked.
Right.
And then luckily, because of Brophy and Ruka, I've known Pat Tenori, the owner of Ruka for 20, 30 years. Okay. I connected with Brophy, and Brophy's just like said something about Ruka, and he's like, "Oh, would you want to ride for Ruka and be an artist for Ruka?" And I'm like, "What? Yeah, I'd love it." Sorry. And he's like, "I love it. I'd love it." And again, it was like taking the paycheck and going way the fuck down, but having that freedom and having that ability where it's like, I don't have to do anything if I don't want to.
Right.
You know,
Being
it's just like being,
yourself,
being a sponsored skater. And it's like that whole thing of like, I don't have to go to work. I don't have to do anything. I'm at home and I'm lucky that I have Stance supporting me that way. And I have Ruka supporting me that way. And again, for me, enough is enough. I have enough to pay my mortgage and I'm cool. I again, and it was like downsize. But that power of, again, being able to be with Dylan that whole time, dude, best decision I ever made in my life to walk away from trips and working to be able to be with him. And again, that's the point. Like I spent all that time with him and we had the magical time. And again, he stopped me from drinking and he stopped me from smoking and he stopped all this stuff, which again was able to make me realize the importance. And again, of like, I'd rather help people. I'd rather be able to like help a kid that's struggling or someone that lost someone and do all these things. And again, just make it to make by than to make all this money and live this life of like, oh, I'm a, celebrity photographer and I have, all this shit where it's like, you don't leave with any of it. And then I lost another friend, a guy named Kenny, who was a skateboarder in Hawaii. And it was randomly enough, it was at the same hospital that Dylan was at and he had cancer. And I remember being with Kenny and all of the guys from Hawaii were in there. And a lot of guys from APB and we're all in here and we're all surrounded Kenny. And his grandma's there, his mom's there, and all the crew, the original guys, Renee Matheson, we're all in there. And I remember him going from consciousness to unconsciousness, from being with us all. And he would hear us and we'd talk, and then it went from him being able to talk back to then it just being grunts to nothing, right? Oh. But we were all around him. And I remember all, Hawaii style, we all were holding hands and we're in a circle around him. And he passed. And I remember that was the first time that I experienced death in being in that situation. And then I went, this guy died the richest man I know because he was circled by love. And again, the only thing that you leave with is the love that you have. And that's why, again, for me, the most important thing that you have is time with your loved ones and your friends. That's the most important, the most valuable thing that we have. So that also prepared me when it was Dylan. And again, it was that same thing where he was surrounded by love and he was surrounded by that. And that's how he left. Right. And again, you know, my fiance, Ann, that wasn't the sense. Mike, that wasn't the sense. Like, there's a lot of death when people are alone and tragic things happen, or, you know, again, looking at COVID, when families are ripped apart and they weren't able to be there around these people. But when you have that and you see that and you go, whoa, okay, like, this is the reason. This is what you have. And again, all this other shit is nothing. So if you're slaving your life to have this shit, and you don't have the love and you don't have the respect and you don't have, like, what good is it? You know, what good is it? So, you know, again, learning from the crazy things that have happened to me in my life, but also looking at, because again, every negative has a positive, you know, where again, and we're just used to a negative thing happening and focusing on the negative, where for me, when something negative happens, I'm like, where's the positive? It's here. What is it? Right. What is it? And I look for it. And again, I find it rather than just carrying on all this bullshit. And again, we all are born, and when we're born, everyone celebrates life. And you birthdays, it's like, yeah. But death is unknown. So when people die, everyone takes it as this pain or this agony or this sadness. It's this fear. It's unknown. But it's like, we all die. Yeah. It's exactly like birth. So if we had a different outlook on death, then it would be different. Yeah. And again, that's what I learned, and I realized, and again, from not being on alcohol and not being on drugs, when Dylan passed, I was able to see the positives and I was able to feel these things. And that's like the crazy point, is I felt him in me as I do every day. And again, like, I talk about him every day. I tell him shit. I'm like, and so again, like, I miss hugging him and I miss the conversations with him, but I'm also like, yeah, Dylan, I did this, I did that. Like, and I know that when it is my time and I go up, I'm going to see him.
Right.
And so again, it's, I know that time will come. And again, it's just, again, he's still here. He's still making an impact. Just like Mike T's still here and he's making an impact. And thank God for Ann, she's making an impact. And again, it's just that shifting of like, it's not so, again, we're all going to have that experience in life. So again, it doesn't have to be something that's so negative. And again, I learned from Kenny. And that was the first thing where, again, Kenny was this broke ass skater that had nothing. But again, that was the first sign of like, holy shit, he's the richest man I've ever seen, you know?
That love.
Wow.
And again, you know, that's the same point of like trying to empower strangers and again, to actually truly caring about everyone that's around me, rather than, I had to learn how to love everyone. Yes. You know, where it couldn't just choose who I was loving. You know, I had to learn to love everyone to realize that that's how it works and that's how that energy works. And again, like, I'm so blessed, as much as it's like, oh, I've lived this. I'm so lucky. Again, I'm healthy and I have this amazing girlfriend and I have great friends that skateboarding's brought me, and I've traveled the world and I've done all these amazing things. And again, it's like, it's still continuing to this day, you know, where again, like, it's just taking down these things, or these things that I all say I had to unlearn and unlearn. And I got unlearned from Kenny Hughes, where he had it on his license plate, you know, and it was like unlearn. And it's like racism. Racism is something that you're learned, you know, you don't come out. And that's the thing, like, a child is the most purest thing ever. And again, when you're a child, you have this like, something's not right, you'll go, what's wrong? You know, someone's got to physically like, what happened to you? Like, they have that interest in that thing. And I remember when I kind of started to realize that, and I remember I was in a bank, and this was before the phones were that way. And I remember standing in the line of the bank, and there's all these fucking people, and everyone's fucking grouchy, standing there all pissed off. And I remember this little kid standing there with his mom, and he's spinning in a circle, and he's like, la, 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 you know, and he's fucking doing his shit. And then the mom like grabs his arm, and she's like, stop acting like a child. And I was like, holy shit. No, it's the fucking direct opposite. Where look at him, he's having a good time. We need to start acting like children. We need to start having that. And again, it's unlearn all this fucking bullshit that we put into our heads, or society tells you got to do this or you got to do that, or like, No. Like, you don't have to do any of that. Like, look at Jason Lee. He's a fucking amazing actor. He didn't go to school. He didn't go to acting. Like, he did it himself. You know, and again, it's these things that we as skateboarders are able to pick up because that's who we are and that's what we do. But at that same point, it's like skateboarding is a childhood thing. It's a game. Like, it's something that we all picked up. And again, here we are. And you got grays now. I got grays. And it's like,
no doubt.
Fuck yeah, I'm still going to skate. But I remember being embarrassed to carry my skateboard at airports because people were looking at me like, what the fuck's this grown man doing with a skateboard? You know what I mean? Like, is that your son's? And it's just like, oh, fuck yourself. This is mine, you know? But again, I had to throw all that out and again, it was something that was making me not stoked. And it's like, I have to wear the Rolex and I have to do it. And it's like, no.
But that's what society
exactly. And again, it's
thrusting
unlearn and be
like
a child and again, like, live your life and again, like, look at all these things. Or again, if someone's sick, think about that. Or again, like I always say, tell your friends you love them, man. Because again, I was brought up this more, again, my dad never said he loved me. My dad was this New York super gnarly guy and you know, real men don't cry and all this shit. And it wasn't until Ann died that my dad cried. And Ann was the one like, tell your wife you love him, tell your sons you love him. And it made my dad that. And then come later in life, my dad's like, my dad never told me that. I didn't know any of that. And so all of a sudden, my dad's like the most loving teddy bear, rulingest dude now. And it's like, thank God. You know, and again, these are things where, again, for me, it's tell your friends you love them and don't be worried about this or again, like, because, you know, you might not have that chance.
Totally.
You know, and again, just lost another friend, the Taylor from the Foo Fighters, where I had met through other people and I just knew him as acquaintance. Arto Sari's wife was dating him. And again, there's this weird circle with him. He was really good friends with a lot of my surfer friends. Family on tour. He's not here.
Wow.
You know, and again, it's like, fuck, man, like, life is so short. It's so short. So again, like, you have these things, or us as men, like, we can't hug our friends and fucking fuck that. Hug your friends. Tell them you love them. You know, be straight up and be fine with that. Like, I cry like a motherfucker now. I'll watch a commercial and be like, ah, you know, like, and again, it's fine because again, I held so much shit and that's something in my therapy. I held all this shit inside of me. And it created stomach issues and it created fucking ulcers and because I would hold all my feelings inside and even anger and all this shit. And then I burst and be this madman where they'd be like, Dark Mark's out, Dark Mark's out. When Dark Mark came out, it's like, get away from him. He's psycho. Where again, I would just lose it and snap. Where it's like, I had to learn how to release all this stuff to again, become the man I am, where it's like, man, it's trippy because, you know, I'm 50 and it's like, I've just grown up in the last, 10 years where it's like, holy shit, where the rest of the time it was trying to figure it out or thinking this way or piling these shit ins and building all this crap up or again, thinking I needed to have this car or have that money. And it's like, no. And then again, it all goes back to full circle where it's like, I just need to be around skateboarders.
Right. Yeah.
And again, at one point when Dylan was in his situation, I had not been skating because that's who I skated with. And then I had ripped my shoulder from slamming so much and I have a really high pain tolerance. And I hit my shoulder so many times that I caused stuff to happen in my shoulder. And then I didn't go get it fixed. And then it snapped my bicep.
Ow.
So my bicep snapped and dropped.
Jesus.
So then I had to get my bicep reattached, my shoulder. Gosh. So I was in a sling for like 6 months and I couldn't.
Little Popeye.
Yeah, a little Popeye
ball.
But I couldn't skate. I couldn't do art. I couldn't do anything.
Wow.
All I could do is sit in this sling, right? Because of the way it was. And I was just like, I started to lose my mind.
Yeah, man.
But then all of a sudden, Malachi's kid from Hawaii, Evan Mock from Hawaii, they were coming to town. And then all of a sudden I started to go to the skate parks with them. Just like, fuck, I'll just go watch.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I'm at the skate park and I'm like, dude, that kid fucking, he's got good style. That kid fucking rips. And all of a sudden it's like, I feel myself starting to fill back up with that energy where I'm like, holy shit, I need to be around skateboarding. Yeah. And again, it pushed me right back into it. Whereas like, even if I'm not skating, I need to be there. And again, it just revamped me and repowered me and gave me that whole thing where I was just like, again, thank God for skating. And that whole point of like, that's all I need. I don't need to have all this other shit. And again, I can get the same enjoyment from watching someone fucking rad ripping it up, or these new kids, or again, like the amount that girls have come up in skating and how good they are. And again, just like the youth. And again, like now kids are able to do multiple things and it's not uncool, you know? And you're like, these kids are fucking having a blast. And thank fucking God, you know?
I agree. I mean, just on the fact of like what you just, 10 years ago, you're just finally figuring all this out.
Yeah.
Imagine a kid growing up in these times with social media, with, society
it's so
telling
harsh.
them,
and
they need to be X, Y, and Z.
I never did.
It's crazy.
I never did any social media. I never did Facebook. I never did any of this stuff. And then when things started to drop for me, people are like, dude, you need to get on Instagram. You need to get on Instagram. And I was looking at it as a social media platform. And I was like, anti. But then all of a sudden I kind of was like, you know what? I can make it my own magazine. Sure. And I started to look at it as making a magazine. And again, I can put anything I fucking want. And again, if I want to talk about something, I can do that. Or I started to put my poetry up there. And again, like being in school and being told I was just this crap and all this shit. And then all of a sudden I'm writing poetry and I'm putting it up. And all of a sudden the amount of people that are like, holy shit, your poetry's insane. I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck? But again, I used it in a different way, and I was able to see how it was good, and it helped me, right? And again, it helped me get work, and it helped me kind of get out of that rut. But then I felt the pressure of it. All of a sudden, it's like you go up 100 followers, you drop, and I'm like, why did I drop? And again, just recently, I went down 200 followers, right? And I'm like, got so bummed out. And then I'm like, why the fuck do I care? Right? Like, seriously, why do I care? And then again, I talked to Laura, my girlfriend. I'm like, I fucking got bummed. Like, who gives a shit? Like, and she's like, like, you're going to value yourself over that? Like, again, but then I'm like, what the fuck are these kids doing? Yeah. And how gnarly, because again, like being bullied or being put in this. And then all of a sudden there's a show on the TV and it starts talking about social media platforms, and they start showing the social media, and every time the new one hit, they showed the amount of suicide from kids that's happening. And every time it's getting higher and higher and higher. And it's like, I use it for work. Right. I use it, and I'm a grown-ass man, and it affects me. It can affect me. Where, again, I'm like, imagine being a kid and being judged by that. Or, again, like, and again, it's like, how fucked is this world where it's like, take the number of likes off. Take the number of followers off. Like, why do you have to show that? So you're an elitist and you can be, I've got over 1 million followers. Now I'm fucking the next, Kardashian, where it's like, like, fuck. If you could take all that out, because again, like the youth, man, and again, that's why I'm speaking more out about suicide and more out about letting kids know, like, hey, you're not alone and you can feel this and you don't have to feel this way. Or again, like I was the ugly duckling little kid. I was the fat little kid. All my friends were thin and ripped. And again, you know what? Shit turned and now I'm the guy that's in shape and they're all fat and bald. And it's like, what the fuck? But again, it's such a thing where society has to make a change. Yeah. And again, it starts with guys and us and being influencers, real influencers, kids that are actually trying to influence in a positive way, not in a way to get a new fucking car or get some fucking hairdo. And it's like, no, like we got to be the ones. And that's where, again, I'm so appreciative of this show and what all you, and respect to all you guys, because again, it shows people, and it shows like having Jay Lee on there, who again, to me, hero, and here's him talking about other stuff, and how many other actors are going to do that? Yeah. Right. Do you know what I mean? But again, here's our guy, and look at how he represents himself. And again, you look at a lot of the skaters that are out there and helping, like, that's where, again, I'm so thankful Reem's back, and he's there to influence, and he's there to carry on. And again, like, the players that we have and what we can do, and again, how we can make a difference. Yeah. And again, like, how we can really help someone. And that was, like, the big thing. And I got it from Jeff Hartzell, and randomly enough, Lee Scratch Perry, where he said, and it was, I'm the upsetter. And at first you hear upsetter and you think like upsetting people, but it's like, no, upsetting people. And then that's where, again, the whole uplift. And that became a big mantra of mine of like, I had PMA from when I was a kid. And again, having a positive mental attitude and trying to push positive mental attitude. And then I started doing Love More because I went to a store in Japan that was this huge fashion show and it was Love Less. And I'm like, love less? Fuck that. Love more. Right. And I started writing Love More. And I made a conscious decision to say, as an artist and as a person, I am not going to do a negative thing where, again, I used to have the middle finger and do all this fuck you and all. Stop. No middle fingers. No negative shit. I'm going to push Love More. I'm going to push PMA. And I'm going to push Uplift. Because, again, if we all uplift each other, fuck, we're all going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And again,
For
that's
sure.
like the big thing that I think you guys are doing is uplifting skateboarding and skateboarders. And again, what's real and showing what's real. And again, like, you know, I had a friend of mine who's a Ruka fighter, and he opens, you know, I again, like with making the jackets and same thing. I told the guys at Ruka, I'm like, you know, if you made these guys special jackets that said team and like had these things, they're gonna appreciate it more and they're gonna wear it. So I made this guy Cheeto, who's a UFC fighter. I made him a jacket. And I made him this rad jacket, it was Jimi Hendrix and all this stuff. And he's on Joe Rogan. And straight out takes my jacket and he goes, look at this jacket my friend made. Mark Oblow made me this jacket, right? And again, for me, and my brothers call me, dude, your shit's on Joe Rogan. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. What's Joe Rogan to me? He's nothing to me. But to you guys, to be on the 9 Club, to have my name associated with, that's the importance for me. Where it's like, dude, he's got the, I don't fucking care. He's a fucking idiot. You know, like, again, like, what? I don't give a shit. Right. And again, it's all, and it'll always go back to skating to me. And again, that whole thing and unlearn and being a kid. And again, like, how long ago did we meet? You know?
Long time.
And
like
again, you know?
years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And having that friendships where, again, like the friendships with Natas, the friendships with Gons, you know, the friendships that I have through skating Lance Mountain, like it's priceless. And again, being able to help kids or like help someone's career or like pick someone up when they're in a shitty spot like Mike T did, who again was a mentor to me. And I went, I want to help my dudes be like he was.
Right.
I want to help. I want to be there, not just try and take something. I want to help them, you know? And again, like, he's in me. That's where, again, all my riders, I'm like, you got to buy a house. You got to save your money. You got to get a tax guy. You got to fucking do this. Because, again, I learned from all, like, no, taxes, oh, shit, I lost everything. Or I walked away. Like Christian. Christian was the most generous, loving dude. Like, he took care of all of us every time. Take us to dinner. Gold card! Put a gold card down. He'd have rental cars for us. He'd have hotel rooms for us. He gave so much. And again, he got caught up in his shit and he went down and he got to prison. And again, for me, if you would have told me when I was a kid, you're going to help Christian out, you're going to be the one to uplift him, I would have been like, no fucking way. But again, I was in contact with his wife before when he was in prison. I made sure that when he got out of jail, he had a sponsor with Quicksilver. Quicksilver did his movie. And again, wow. I'm on Ruka with him, and me and Christian are like, dude, this is insane. You know, it's like, but again, it's that whole circle, and again,
sure.
it's about that. And again, like I sit there, and I remember being at Christian's Orson Welles' house and seeing all his cars and Harleys, and he didn't even ride a motorcycle, and he had all this shit. I'm like, you don't own a house? Like, nah, dude, it's never gonna end, because he thought it's never gonna end, right. You know. And again, the what he was around. It wasn't. And he didn't have a Mike T to sit there and go, yo, Christian. And I remember there was one point before he fell off where I was trying to get him connected with Vision and have a company with him with Vision. Oh. And then it was his father, and I love Ivan because Ivan's a good friend of mine, but Ivan's like, Christian don't ride for no company. He's his own.
Right.
And again, it was like, oh, dude, like, and then whoosh, falls down the fucking thing. It would have helped
if you had that guidance behind him.
Again, right, and that's where, again, it's so important. And again, for me, of like, well, yeah, I didn't do this or I didn't do that, and I wasn't a fucking pro like any of you guys and had that. But again, I was able to help these guys and help
For
lift
sure.
these guys up. And again,
Definitely.
that to me, I shared the joy, just like anything with any of my guys, like Jeremy Ray, you know, Kris Markovich, like any of my guys, I got to share that and feel like, hell yeah, just like I know Mike did in doing what he did with Danny
sure.
and all those guys and Plan B. And like, again, it's just all in perspectives, you know, and it's all
For
looking in
sure.
different ways. And again, how we can do this. And again, how we can prolong where, again, for me, I was just like, I've been in skating so long and I've watched so many dudes go in and out of skating and company owners and managers and all this shit. And it's like, I've been here the whole fucking entire time and I never left because again, for me, this is the most beautiful thing. Even when I was doing my photography career, I was doing analog and Gravis. I was doing both. But again, that's where also too, for me, I was running myself ragged where I was doing way too much shit and I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't sitting back and going like, this is fucking cool.
Yeah, when
And
you're
again,
in it, you can't take a step back.
yeah.
look in.
And I
It's
couldn't say
tough.
no to jobs and I was taking more and more and more and more and more and more. And it's just like, dude, fuck. Now that's the thing. Like now I'm home and I can do whatever I want. And again, yeah, I make not even a quarter of the money that I'm making, but I don't give a shit. I'm stoked.
long as
I
you're
can,
happy, bro.
Yeah, and I
That's
can
right.
do whatever. And again, like to be able to help people and again, have a dad call me and tell me that his kid died at 2 years old from cancer and how can I, and again, lift him up. And again, thinking of that, like, oh my fucking God.
crazy.
Like, and you know, I mean, the stories go on and on and on, but I answer every single DM that I get. And it's a job. It's a fucking
really is,
job. And
for
a lot of it is weeding through some psycho shit, you know? But again, it's like, I have to give everyone the opportunity and look at that and go, okay, what can I do? Like even from this, I know there's going to be shitloads that are going to come into this.
For sure.
But again, that's what I get my joy out of.
Right.
And that's where, again, I don't mind doing it. And I love doing it. And again, I sit there and half the time I'm like, how the fuck? You know, like again, when the guy told me he's from London and his kid died, 2 years old, she died. Her name was Rose. And it's like, how the fuck, or Daisy, sorry. How the fuck do I deal with this? How the fuck do I tell this man? And I just start
Where do you
crying.
even start?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
how do you even respond?
Yeah.
I
something
take
like
a
that.
breath. And again, like usually I cry and I get through it. And then I just go, I just got to say what's from my heart. And then again, I just let it out. Just like coming here, I'm going, oh my God, I hope I can talk and make myself sound. But again, it's like when you speak from your heart,
Yeah.
Flows out like
you-
water,
you-
bro.
Yeah.
you can't go wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So
No, it's true. It's true. Well, listen, I mean, we appreciate the kind words. I mean, all our focus is we want to celebrate skateboarding. We want to celebrate the skaters, the photographers, the filmers, the team manager. I mean, there's so many people that make all this stuff happen.
Yeah.
You know, so shout out to you for
Dude,
everything that you've
huge
done.
shout out to you,
Straight up.
dude. My first actual like pro model board was the Jason Maxwell Prime.
yeah.
Like going to the shop and like picking it out, and I always like trip out. But it's amazing to hear your story right now and me tying how I came up in what you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's really so. Thank you very
Oh, my
much.
pleasure.
To put all
Yeah,
that together
bro.
right now in my head personally is like really really cool.
Stoked.
man.
So that's really rad, dude.
Hell yeah.
Totally.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I think that because we touched on the Ruka stuff.
Yep.
You know, you
Yep.
got a new line coming out, and you
Yep.
brought a couple pieces here. I'd
Yep.
love to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
them
yeah.
up
Yeah.
close and personal.
All right. Let me, you might grab it?
Please,
Yeah.
please. Yeah. Oh, wait, you didn't bring them closer? Sorry about that.
Oh, you got a bunch of stuff, dude.
Hell yeah.
It's really cool. Yes.
But okay, let me throw this on.
Throw that on
so
there.
so again, this stuff and like the hat. So
Yeah.
this all was the beginning of again when I started to do the hand sewn stuff.
What's it called again?
Well, the first stuff is just hand
just hand
stitched,
sewn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did a bunch of hand sewn patches, and
Okay.
then those are the stuff that we sent off to China to get reproduced.
Okay.
But then again, it came back with this really, like, and these are production, but
Okay.
they look so much like an actual chain stitched stitch thing, and it gave a kind of like a different look to the product. And so
yeah.
again, it's I've evolved into doing more of the chain stitch,
Yeah.
but with the way it works and the cool thing with Ruka and working with their designers, you know, and then So I have a men's line, which is a lot of this product, and then there's also women's, which is also super cool to have the product to be able to talk to both sides. And then like this is a bomber jacket that they did.
Oh, that's dope.
I like that jacket.
Yeah. So it's cool because even like the patches and everything, and again, it's just like it has that feel that it's a hand done.
Yeah,
but it's actually a production because again,
it's put my name on the back.
Yeah. Well, I got to get that on there. It's coming.
I'm going on Joe Rogan next week.
I know. We got to get it. But yeah, so it's cool. I got this coming, which is really cool and really exciting, and it's doing really well. Like it's already been shown in Europe and shown in Japan.
When is it coming out?
It's coming out this summer.
Okay.
And then also super stoked with Stance. I got a collaboration coming out with Hirosh, which we did, and it was kind of the same thing, which is rad, as two friends, and he's a regular and I'm a goofy. So we have a croc coming out with Stance, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
And he did the left side, and he did it with wood grain. And it's like the wood, like he does all his wooden toys. And then my side's the right side. And then on my side, I actually did threading, line stitching. So it looks like a skateboard ply, but it's all thread. Nice. And then we both have the PMA philosophy. So they're widgets that go on them, and they, so it's like the whole crazy thing with that. Damn. And then also some socks that are like PMA and that whole thing. Cause again, that stuff. And it was really cool where Albie, who's the guy that cooked you guys up with that big box. But
shout out DJ Albie, dude.
DJ Albie.
Shout out
DJ Albie. He's the one that kind of put it all together and was like, you guys are friends and you guys both live on different sides of the world, and I want to have this tie-in and have you guys do this. And so again, it's just like for me to be able to do this and continue to do this and make products, which is such a rad thing, because it's so cool when you're walking down the street and you see someone wearing your shirt or wearing your hat, and again, having a brand like Ruka and Stance that support me for being me, and they've been through everything with me, and it's like a really cool relationship. And again, like knowing the owners and the founders of the brands, and Pat Tenori and Ryan Kingman, and it's just been a really cool journey and a cool way to be able to keep going, keep evolving,
Shout out to Ruka and shout out to Stance.
There you go.
Yeah. Woo, my lifesavers.
Yeah, we've done some Stance collabs with them.
Yeah.
I've had some 9 Club socks.
Yeah.
Dude, amazing stuff. I love this bomber jacket,
so
bro.
rad.
Then these shorts and everything. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, and there's pants and there's some
there's
other.
some more.
There's more to it. This is just kind of stuff that I was able to kind of grab and not overdo you guys with stuff. But there's pants, there's t-shirts, there's hoodies.
Nice.
And then the women's stuff came out really cool. It's like I did a big rainbow, because again, every should have pride in everything, and I did a big rainbow and it says love on it, and it came out super rad on the back of the jacket, and there's spider webs and all kinds of stuff. But
I love it, bro.
it's really cool.
Man, I love your attitude. I love the PMA and the love and everything. It's just it's inspiring.
Thank you.
I got to tell you, because I get emails, DMs. I'm not a big DM checker here and there, but once in a while, like a message like strikes me. I've gotten messages from the show like, oh man, I was in the hospital, I had this or brain tumor or this, or you guys' show help, and like I'm taken back by it. But at the end, but sometimes I don't know how to respond.
I feel the same way.
No, sure. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, it's hard for me.
Yeah, and again, for me, I think it and thanks to Dylan, and again with being around that, because that was the thing when I would go to the hospital and seeing how many people didn't have anyone there,
right? And
seeing again like parents running in because their kid died and they were at work. And just seeing these things where it was like, and that was the thing with Dylan, he had such a good support group. He had so many guys coming in and rotating constantly. His mom was there constantly. His sister was there. And again, all these people were around him constantly. He was never alone. Acme was always there. And so seeing that, I remember, and that was the first thing I said to myself when Dylan got sick was, holy shit, he's going to help hundreds of people. And I didn't think he was going to go. I thought, he was going to get through it. But the first time I stepped in the hospital, I walked out of there and go, he's going to help so many people. Wow. And it's like, random same stuff. Like I was smoking cigarettes, but only in Asia. When I go to Asia, because I couldn't find stuff. So I was like, oh, I'm smoking cigarettes, but only when I go to Asia. And I was there. I was in Japan. And I remember there was like some little weird statue, and I had the cigarette next to the statue, and I posted a photo. It was like a cat, and I put the cigarette by the cat. And then I got a DM, and it was some random person. They go, hey, I know I'm just a random person, and it probably doesn't mean anything to you, but what could I do to convince you to stop smoking? And I stopped. I was
Wow.
like, you did it. You did it. And again, I was like, it like for someone to say that and see that, and again, like we're again using something that could be so negative, social media, but using it as a positive and going, yeah, I stopped. Never again. Haven't touched one since. And that random person, whoever you are, you saved me.
Crazy,
but again, it's all perspectives and how you do it. But again, for me, was in that path of like I know what my journey is, and my journey now is even more than when helping the Jeremys and the the Natases and the random. It's like now I know it's helping these people around me that I don't know, and that gives me even more of a lift. Like not knowing who Ethan was. And again, bringing him into my house and having him come to my house and again being like, how's this going to go? And then him touching me and moving me so much. And again, being able to be there and him, and be there when he's going through this and, being able to support him and make him feel fucking good. And that's like, again, that's all I need to do,
priceless,
man.
bro.
Yeah,
Man.
it is priceless. 100%.
So good, bro. I love it, man. I love it. Well, next time I get an email or a DM, I'll try my best to.
Well, it's also filtered
From the heart.
because again, a lot of it can be, and a lot of it can be weird.
Yeah, but you know what though? I mean, you can sense it
Yep.
right away.
Yep.
So I get it's. I'm like,
It's just you gotta get yourself.
Some
You just gotta
bullshit.
open up.
Yeah,
You
but
just gotta let it all.
It's,
let it out.
it's also different when someone's asking you about skating or asking you about, but when they're asking you
dude.
about help,
Yeah.
or they're saying, I'm suicidal too, or
Yes.
I lost someone,
Right.
it does. You all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's different. Or again, I get the
Yes.
same thing like,
It
hey, can I
becomes more
make
real,
you,
like-
can I make you a TIFF or can I make you a so-and-so account? I'm just like, nah, negative, or like just random when the random and you see it and it go through it like,
for sure. No,
whatever.
there's definitely like a filter involved, you
Yeah.
know. And like I said, I go through it a little bit, but not really. It's just, those come up, man, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know even where to begin.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's hard to dig
you
deep
know.
on those, really.
And it sucks because like I start thinking about it, I feel bad. I feel, you start
Yeah.
feeling certain ways, and you're like, dude, I mean, like,
It's not like you don't care. You just don't know how to.
I don't know. I don't know how to where to even start.
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like,
that's you don't know where
It's
to
almost
start.
turning into a form of therapy. Like you're asking me something like, dude, I might not be able to help you, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But and that was the whole point for me. Same thing. Like that was the first things of like, how the fuck am I going to answer this? Or again,
Right.
what if I say something wrong?
Yeah.
Or what
Yeah.
if I give them the wrong advice? But again, that was the point of like, just say what the fuck you really
Right.
feel in your heart.
Yeah.
And take the time to actually really think about it and really give that person that time.
Yeah.
And then again, then it became easier and easier and easier. And again, like
Right.
now it's again with the last post about suicide. And again, kids ask me about therapy. It's like, okay, I'm so conditioned into knowing how to not judge myself. But again, they're asking for help.
Yeah.
They're trying to get your advice. And again, like they look up to you. So it's like, okay, if even just responding is giving them hope.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
again, when you give that and you give your heart and you give their time, it fucking works.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, we all can do it and we all can love more and we all can uplift and and again, it I've never had it where I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Like it's always been like, God, I feel good. Thank God. And again, like it's crazy because I'll have people that I'll be in contact with and then they pass.
Yeah.
And you see it that they're passed.
Right.
And it's like, fuck, crazy, But again, you're like, I'm glad I was able to share that. And then again, you have stories when they make it, you know, and you're like, holy shit, And again, having a kid tell me that you saved my life, and I'm like, crying, and but
Dude.
again, you made my time fucking better, and you got my mind off this shit, or
When I was 2010, met these kids, Stephen Crocker and Blake Crocker. Blake Crocker is the guy who drew your little
The painting?
the painting right there.
I like that painting of you.
There,
Oh,
yeah. He
Oil painting.
he did that this for his own good and just sent it out. He loved the nightclub, but they asked me questions on MySpace back then, and they were like, "Hey, whatever." They were but they supported my skating, but also was just like, "Yo, if they had personal questions, I'm gonna go to his wedding later this year," and I'm just dude, this is so cool.
Do you guys know Evan Canori?
I don't.
He's a San Francisco guy, skater, right? And again, when he reached out to me and was basically like, "Hey, I became a designer because of Dylan." And he goes, "And I made this jacket and I wanted to send it to Dylan, but now I want to give it to you." Right? And I'm just like, and then again, I'm like, okay, and reach out. And then next thing you know, he's a skater. He's a city boy. And he's so fucking talented. And I look at the stuff that he's doing now, and he's killing it. He does all his own shit. And he's got his own line, and it's in like high-end stores in Japan and really limited stuff. And it's phenomenal. And again, that same thing of like taking that and reaching out there, because again, I have a hard time when people are like, "I want to give you something," because to me, I'm like, I don't want to take something from someone, or again, take your ship. Like, I have a hard time because a lot of times it's like I have so much stuff.
You have so much stuff.
But again, it's like taking the thing of like, okay, I've got to let someone give this to me, because again, I'm a giver, just like you guys say. Like that's why I came with a bunch of gifts. It's like what I do, and so it's like going through that process, but really learning of like, wow. And again, meeting people where Evan became a good friend of mine. And again, like I've watched his career blow up, and it's just like, wow, I'm so glad that I took that and I accepted that. And again, if I get stuff that someone sent and I don't want it, I give it to someone else. And I always make it a path to try and hook someone else with it. Just even like boxes from my sponsors. It's like, I'm going to give it to this or give it to that. And again, as long as you carry it that way, I think it's moving that ball forward, because a lot of times someone looks up to you. They would look up to you. They look up to you. They want to give you these things. And that means so much that you got it and you took it, and I mean, I give my home address, like, here, it's my home address.
Jeez,
like, what
you need
the
a P.O. box.
Yeah, I know, I really do. Well, because I also got some crazy stalker shit. Where like some women are like, "Woo, we're meant to be together." I'm like, no. You know, it's like,
the internet is an it's not always a safe place.
And I learned that.
You gotta be careful.
That.
You gotta be careful, bro.
Wow.
Well, dude, listen, congratulations on everything.
Seriously, bro.
And thank you for the gifts. He brought us some skateboards that were well, let's just show really quickly. This is Dub's one that he got. Can we show them?
Yeah, please. Because I have my own. I do my own line, Oblow line, which again I sell. I do everything myself. I package it all, and it's just
my God.
It's just stuff that I want to do. You know, and again, it has no meaning or no rhyme.
You didn't open it up?
I didn't open it until now. I wanted to open it up on the show.
And so all these are some of my like block print art, and then I have a friend that has a laser engraver, so they're laser engraved. You know, and then again, the board I had Paul Schmidt make for me.
That wood smells great.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for
my pleasure.
These gifts.
I'm
They're amazing.
glad to give you guys.
Thank you so
He was
much.
like, "Oh yeah, just ride them. They're great cruiser." I'm like, "I don't know if I could ride this thing.
Yeah.
This is a
this
work
is a
of art.
collector.
I'm gonna
This is
have you
a
sign it,
Yeah.
and put it on eBay, bro."
Exactly.
That's just what I do, man.
Yeah.
You should check out my eBay.
I know. My eBay account is.
No, but congrats on everything.
I appreciate
It's
it.
amazing.
All right, dude. So good to have you, bro.
And the stories that you have, I mean, I'm sure we could sit here for another 5 hours and listen to. I mean, we probably skipped over a lot of stuff.
There is a lot of stuff.
So we'd love.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, come back.
Take two.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
no.
Yeah,
I mean, we got our stop and chat show.
Yeah.
Come back, kick
Please.
it.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. But listen, we want to give you some 9 Club stuff to take home if you want.
Yeah, for sure. And I got to make you guys some 9 Club patches.
Yeah, we need.
so
that
soon.
would be
You'll be into those.
amazing.
That'll be easy. All I need is you send me the logo and done.
Okay, got
it's
it.
easy. I
So
can.
right.
We need
Nail it.
4,000 of them.
Yep. Yeah.
Kelly.
What size?
Medium.
Medium. Okay.
Yeah. Dude, this is great stuff,
great,
bro.
bro.
I'm gonna get this bomber jacket.
You
I
can
like
take it.
No, I
Yeah.
can't
No,
take it.
take it.
I
Take
can't
it. It's a large. Take it. Does it fit you?
Oh, it's a medium.
Is it fit or no?
I don't know.
Try it on. If it fits, you take
I
it.
can't take your stuff.
I'm not going to wear it. I've
we were
never
just
worn
talking
my
about
own
giving
shit.
people
Yeah, I
stuff.
never wear my own stuff.
Really?
That was something, like for me, everything I make, I can never wear it. Because I just have a thing growing up in Hawaii. It's like an arrogant thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, I can't, I don't know. I just
So
have
would
a
you
weird
ride your own
thing.
pro board?
I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't. That's why, again, that,
Well,
that
you know what
thing.
though? But go back then, we wouldn't ride our own pro boards,
Back
right?
then, I think
It-
early
it
on,
turned-
but
Yeah.
now it turned like
Yeah.
when I
Well,
turned pro,
'cause
I'll
now
ride
it's-
my board.
Yeah, well,
Riding the
again,
shit.
but again, it's like
it's
for
just
me,
nice,
that's
bro.
doing the art, doing the graphic.
Right.
Like you're writing usually someone else's graphic that
Totally.
they did for you, so
Mm-hmm.
it's a little different.
Yeah,
Dubs, what do you
that
think?
fits. Yeah.
It's a good.
Because if not, again,
It's a good.
That-
We get a
our
box.
man Brophy can send a box of all this stuff, so
Oh,
we
bro.
can put in the
Brophy.
orders for
Brophy,
everybody.
you know how to
Yeah,
hook it up for us,
Brophy,
bro.
gotta hook the
You know what
boys
I mean?
up.
They feel great.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna come visit you, Brophy.
yeah. Goes full circle.
It's got an inside
Dude.
pocket.
I'm gonna visit you now too.
Yeah,
if you're
dude,
gonna be over
you
there.
got to.
Yeah.
You guys got to come by my place, because out of my house I do all my stuff, everything. I have
Where
my
do you
studio,
live?
Costa Mesa.
What's your address?
It's but now it's by the Volcom Park, but it literally you guys got to come by.
Oh
'cause
yeah, dude, I'd love to.
Again, if you came, my house is filled with everything from
Really?
Natas art to Gonz
that.
art to Lance Mountain
that
to
would be amazing
Gonz
to
board,
see.
Dylan board. I mean, everything is in there. Is because when I bought my condo, my first thought, and again back then, was I want to have photographers that are from the industry give me stuff, because skateboarding got me this house.
Right.
So I have Sturt photos, I have
Oh,
Swift
hell
photos.
yeah.
I mean, my house is a museum.
That's so.
So you guys got to come by, and
love
then again,
that.
I have my stitching, and my garage is where I paint everything and shoot photos. And
archive
Yeah,
of
it's really
history.
Yeah, we need a little field trip.
yeah. Because again, I mean, if you want to look through photos from the 80s,
Yeah.
like
Well, you brought these magazines, and it was just
Yeah,
like,
bro.
oh my god, like the Thrasher's black and white, like
Yeah.
with it's like
Yeah.
newspaper.
Yeah, it's
almost
newspaper
like-
print.
I know,
You know,
Rob
bro?
Roscoe fucking launching over some cars and shit.
yeah.
Amazing, bro.
It's pretty dope, man. Oh, thank you, Kelly.
Sick, Kelly.
Oh, we got a bunch of stuff. Hold on, bro. Don't go nowhere. We got a bunch of stuff for you, bro.
I'm
This
stoked
is
I
all-
got the front row parking too, so it's easy loading.
Oh yeah. First of all, Mark, bro,
Oh, thank you.
pleasure.
I gotta give hugs to everyone.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Oh, when we get up,
Yeah.
we're gonna have group hug.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
gonna have a group hug.
We're
All
getting
PMA
hugs.
in here.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
all
of
day.
course.
Positive mental. Okay, listen. We got candles.
Sick.
Okay, this is don't be alarmed, but this is Roger's morning wood.
Oh,
Okay.
nice. Yes.
Yeah, smell that.
Ooh.
Smells great.
It comes
Yes.
with a wooden wick.
Wooden wick. You got a wooden wick on your morning wood.
Yeah, right.
I love it. It smells great.
Listen, also, we did a collab with Grip 6. They're a belt company. Great
Sick.
belts.
Sick.
Great belts. I'm wearing mine right now.
All
Dutch
right.
probably has
I
on.
don't have a belt
today.
on.
Got
Oh, you got
sweats.
sweats on.
Yeah.
You don't wear belt
Yeah.
with sweats? You don't wear sweats
No,
with belt?
don't do that.
But anyway,
Awesome.
we got a bunch of belts in there.
Sick.
Bills.
You can get your, you'll wear,
Nice.
yeah, you
All
can give your
right.
girl.
And I got a belt hanger.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hang
you
those
could get,
things up.
look, you got a belt for every day of the week. You could get your girl a belt.
Yeah.
She could skate with it.
Dude, I'm
do all
telling
this
you.
Stuff. Let's
She's on. She's
Okay.
on. You're going to want to
So
get her
rad.
on here.
let's go.
Yeah.
You're going to want to get her on
sure.
here. Laura Kazmarek. She's badass.
Okay. We're gonna look her up, bro.
Yeah.
Hoodie for when it gets cold.
Perfect.
Down there in
Orange County.
Listen, bro, I gotta open this up. I gotta show you, bro. So we did Jason Lee. You know, we were on the
Yep.
show.
Oh,
we
I
talked about
saw
his episode.
those. I
yeah,
saw
yeah,
those.
Yeah. So we got
You know, and that's
the,
the funny thing. Like even that, like there's a war outside
Yeah.
of your window. Like everything we'd sang. I mean, again, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my god, like so
And that
iconic.
stuck with us too. Like
Yeah.
you know the whole.
Oh,
fucking-
Oh yeah, yeah,
you know?
totally, totally. From day one.
Destroying our
World, learn to
Yeah.
love and
Yeah.
lend a hand. Good
a
on
boy
earth, goodwill
and
to
a
men.
girl.
Dude, I remember being at Powell when that premiered.
Yeah.
They premiered it at the Powell Park,
Damn.
and it was fucking maddening. And that's when Gon's skating that park and the
Yeah.
contest, and he disastered the vert wall.
Psycho.
I mean, I could tell you some crazy. Yeah, we could go in deeper
Shout
into
out
the
the
deep.
Powell Skate Zone.
Oh,
man.
dude,
that was my park. That was the
too.
only park in the area.
Dude,
Santa
then
Barbara.
we saw. I was there because I
For
would.
sure.
When I moved from Hawaii, I had my Honda.
What year did you move from Hawaii?
1990.
Got you.
Okay, so when the Powell Park opened, me and Kingman would drive up there every weekend. Because when I got here, I was like, wait, you can drive and actually go somewhere? Because in Hawaii, it was like circle. So I would drive to SF. I'd drive to the Powell Park. And then, again, I started going to the Powell Park all the fucking time. That's when Santa Rosa and Ty Evans.
Santa Rosa.
I'd skate with Ty when he had his ponytail.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll you should see my collection of Powell cards, because we would be able to stay there. They'd let us stay at the place. And I just made tons of ID cards. Like, I have photos of Kareem, and it's like Big Daddy Reem, and like just random name. Like, again, it was like the best time. Fitzpatrick would let us in there. And
What year did Powell open Skate Zone?
you know, I don't.
Because they had the outdoor like little skate.
I never was.
area.
I never
I
went
was
to the
only the
outdoor.
indoor.
Yeah,
I only
me
was
too.
the indoor.
Indoor was fucking
and it was
next level.
amazing.
We probably
Yeah.
skated.
Oh,
side, but you
100%.
probably were like
For
this
sure.
kid.
That mini ramp, I love that
Unbelievable,
spine
that mini
ramp.
ramp.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
You probably saw-
bowl into
yeah.
2 fucking spines.
yeah,
Psycho.
it was nonstop.
You probably saw me there and was like, dude, just go in the fence and make a left.
Because
okay?
again,
that's your little area
and
over
then
there,
and then
bro.
a friend of ours from Hawaii, his, he ended up going to school at the college, San Luis, or not the, what is it,
Santa Barbara?
Santa Barbara, and he was really wealthy family, and they bought him a brand new house right on the beach there. So we would go up and stay there or stay at the Powell Park. Every fucking weekend we drive
Wow,
out. Me and Kingman. It
Did you
was
ever go to Sam Bearwald's house over there?
Yeah, Sam, he had the house right over there too.
yeah, it's crazy times.
So we did the Jason Lee, and we
love
did the money shirt.
Yep.
We just did a really limited run of them, so,
So
they're
sick.
they're on our website. But we got the money shirt right
So
there.
sick.
And we did an updated Bitcoin.
I like that. Yeah.
Bitcoin
yeah.
Day.
yeah.
for 2022,
Yeah.
23.
Yeah.
So there's some
Sick.
shirts for you.
I love it.
There's the bag. Crew neck hoodie,
Cool.
9 Club crew neck
Yes.
hoodie, and oh wait, here's a mug. Coffee guy? Yeah. You brought your coffee right here.
Coffee. Look, Thunder King.
Listen. I know you got the. Here's a mug and
it.
stickers too. You get
Yes.
photo incentive.
Perfect.
Just put those
Okay.
on
All right.
when you shoot Kanye next
Yeah,
or somebody.
Yeah.
Throw
yeah.
a little sticker on there. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I know you got the Ruka. That's for your cop.
Yeah.
Here's a 9
Once
Club.
for
This
water.
is
Yeah,
for-
no,
this
these,
is a
you know,
water.
and again, we no plastic. It's like another thing. Got to be aware of trying to save our environment and not leave a bunch of crap for the world. Like, just making conscious decisions, you know? 'Cause I think I have that same water purifier where instead of
Got
stop
the-
buying the freaking bottled water all the time and just
right.
fill that thing up, use the filters, and save the planet.
I think it's
Much.
crazy that, I've heard the statistic that you can go to anywhere on the planet, the most remote area, and you're going to find human waste.
Oh yeah,
human
yeah. I mean,
trash.
I again, from being with a lot of these brands and going to like Fiji and Tavarua and like shooting on these crazy islands, and you see the shit that's watching up on the beach, and it's like, holy shit, And even the crazy thing for me is like you hear plastic, but styrofoam.
Oh, dude.
Is a million times worse because styrofoam breaks into these small little balls like BBs. And if you go to the beach anytime now and look, you're going to see shitloads of it and you're going to go, oh my God, where styrofoam is so bad.
Let's get rid of the styrofoam.
Yeah, styrofoam and plastic. I mean, I just heard
Plastic.
this crazy statistic about hemp. And they went and they basically said if we grew the hemp, they can make like not plastics, but they can make stuff that can replace plastic out of the hemp. And then the hemp fields can bust down the carbon immunes by shitloads.
Oh,
So it's like they could solve 2 major problems if they just said no. Where again, you hear in certain countries, they're like, no more plastic bags, done.
Right.
No more like Laguna Beach. They did a thing. You can't have a plastic fork, a plastic bag, nothing like that. You come down, like, you're not allowed on the beach with any of that.
Right.
Where I'm like,
Right.
big ups, where if everyone said no.
Oh, I remember when around here it was like, hey, no more plastic at grocery stores.
Yeah.
We got to get the no more plastic straws. You get the paper straws.
Yeah. Well, that's why
now.
the paper bags on the boards. That's where I started.
No, I love that. I love that.
That's
We talk about sustainability on the nightclub and
Yeah.
little things like that. But I don't know. I just heard that like there's like plastic now particles in our blood.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
there's
because it's
crazy
in
shit.
fish. It's in.
Consuming shit.
Yeah.
Because the fish eat it and then we eat
Yeah.
the fish.
We got
Oh my
plastic in
gosh.
our blood now.
Yeah.
It's so crazy when you start to think about all these crazy things that we're just.
Yeah, that we're doing.
Yeah,
and you
we're
think of
doing
the
for
stuff
sure.
that's happened from generations
Oh
before
my
that. We're like,
God,
at least we're aware than starting to try and make a change. Where it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. You know, just like smoking was a big thing. Where again, for me as a young kid, everyone would walk into anyone's house and smoke cigarettes. No one would even ask. I'd be on the plane and I'd be in no smoking row behind smoking.
Yeah.
You know, where you're like, and then all of a sudden, wait, smoking's bad. Like, you know,
commercials with doctors like endorsing
Jesus, that
smoking.
shit was healthy.
I know.
Yeah.
It's healthy for you. Healthy living.
It's got vitamins. In it. It's got vitamins.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? Nah, we're being silly. But listen, dude, Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Guys.
Come back anytime, dude.
Well, now I know where you guys are.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all the gifts.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.